Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, 2.5 Talent. It's been a little bit of a while, but we're finally back for another episode. I guess we can kind of explain, we can just kickstart things with sort of explaining why we've been away for a while. We kind of said, you know, we'll do it every 2 weeks, nice and easy, and it's been like a month, but we haven't been lazy, we've been busy. But of course, it's the usual trio. It's myself, lovely EG.PA, and Trav. Trav, kickstart me. How have you been, mate? What have you been up to?
Not too bad. I think the main explanation for me is the fact that I had an official cast, whether it be a BA1 or a BA3, every single day from from August 22nd to September 4th.
My God.
So I had a long streak, and then finally I had a little bit of a break. Since then, it was my birthday on the 5th as well, so that was a nice little end. We're from 25 to 26.
Happy
Very
birthday,
old now. Old human being, but
you're the boomer of the group.
That's the main reason. I'll say that.
Paladin, how you doing, mate? What have we got?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, I'll be here every week. You know, I'm content machine, and you guys are the ones that are grinding on the cast. I've just been working on YouTube. I mean, NA's been enrolling for a while now, and yeah, I mean, EPL is like perfect for that for that kind of season where you can like put out a week's worth of content every time, because it's like you can preview the next group, and then you can also have like an analysis video to boot with it. So it's been like kind of easy in that sense for as far as content ideas are concerned, where you kind of have just stuff coming to you like just in droves. But as soon as EPL is over, man, that's when things are gonna pick up for all of us, I'm sure. So
We can hope.
I'm excited.
To be fair, you have done a bit of casting recently. I've tuned in for a few.
Yeah. I did a couple open qualifiers for the Road to Rio at the end of the NA Opens, and
Nice.
then a couple CCT stuff here and there.
Easy.
Not too much, but yeah, I will say I did some.
Who ended up making it through your Road to Rio start? I don't think I caught the end, because I mean it finishes like 5 a.m. my time. So as much as I love you, mate, I must say enough for that.
No, I don't blame you. We had Infinity making history with a couple of Colombian players and a Peruvian as well, I believe, and new Mexican players that aren't marquee. So that was really cool. And there was another team.
Is it Isurus? Did they make it through the last one?
No, I think they've already made it.
Arctic was another one that was a little bit rogue. I remember, like a Brazilian squad.
Yeah,
Arctic.
yeah.
And then like, in that third one, it was like Team One, Arctic, Isurus, Infinity?
Team One. That was the other team.
Yeah.
Team One. Yeah. Team One actually kind of like blazed through the bracket. They looked very, very good. They looked good at Fragdelphi as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm very interested to see them on LAN again, because they've got a lot of potential. That was exciting as well.
And you got to bow down to our goat Malbs. I think Malbs is seriously
no, dude, he's
talented.
back.
Like yeah, finally as well, right? I mean, I think obviously like recently, so it's the 13th today for recording purposes, and this will go out in like I don't know 3 days or whatever. But I mean, there's been some pretty decent tournaments outside of EPL as well. Like Frag, as you mentioned, pretty good one. I think you know we've finally seen like some non-NA teams compete there, which I think was quite exciting.
Yep.
I think that was the big news, wasn't it? It was kind of having like Apex there, who, in my opinion, really underperformed because they should have won it. Big Academy, who I think not overperformed, but really did themselves a lot of respect. Like a lot of those young guys who from Big Academy, I think they have been slept on for a while, but they are like the future of like German talent. And then even to be fair to them, while they're not kind of the best teams from the UK, those 2 UK teams there really weren't too bad, considering they're not held as like the top 3, maybe not even top 5 in the UK. When you look towards like UK, it's like ITB, Eco, Wampin. They're like the 3 big hitters. Obviously not including like Endpoint or whatever. So for 7am and Blackhand, I was actually, you know, they did alright, to be fair. To take a map off EG.PA at 7am, I never would have expected that. They're an EU main team, so I never would have expected that.
They got to run through the news as well, with all the back and forth shit talking. That was fun. I mean, I have to say that was a fun couple of days, just seeing UK Twitter and NA Twitter just bashing each other's brains
finally
out.
As well, right? Because it never happens. Like we never get to have like
No.
a UK versus NA. Like we have this rivalry like anything else. Like literally just anything. Like the NA EU. I mean, Paladin, I fucking grill you about everything NA on a daily basis. But yeah, like, it was like for the first time in a long time, and that's why I kind of hope for Frag. It keeps building in terms of, I don't want it to be like this super serious big event in the terms of, you know, like a B tier event or whatever. I want it still to remain as like kind of grassroots fun, essentially
Yeah.
what it's meant to be. You know, like with like, for example, like Beers Adelphia with like, you know, Jackson, like El Jacko, and like Pie Thrower, and you know, you had MMNZ and all these people coming on. Like that was, and Brian as well. Like these people just jumping on drinking and watching it. That is what, like, for me, Frag's all about. And in the UK we have Epic Land, which I guess is like the same sort of thing, but much more scaled down. But that's what I want to run. But I want the international teams to keep coming.
Well, what other stream are you going to see where Brian CS:GO kisses Joshua Mix on the cheek? You're going to see another situation like that, are you? So
it
yeah,
was
it was a lot of
content.
entertainment.
It was
content
serious
for sure.
content. And your Beyblade battles on the last day. I mean, it was just like
during like bracket games, like
just like that is what like these events are all about. Like they're meant to be like nice and fun. So like, I mean, credit to Frag as well. Like I never really hear a bad thing about them. I know, like, kind of in the more UK based, we do have quite a lot of negative things. Like, for example, like our big one, or it was big, which is Insomnia. And we used to have, you know, like, big legends come up from Insomnia. Guardians played it, Kenny S. Shocks, all these like legends who have played it. And it used to be like a really big event, and now it's just a bit of a shit show. Like the servers never work, and there's 2 in a row that never worked. The finals are on a Monday when the event runs Thursday to Sunday, so nobody's there on a Monday, which is like really awkward. Like in the last one, I think we had like 10 people in the crowd, and it was just people who were like packing up their PCs basically. So it's a bit of a mess. But I've never heard a bad thing about Frag. It always seems like it's run really well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about it now is that the prize pool is also raised, so it's like giving incentive to European teams to come over, and I think that we could kind of see the results of it as it was, where like, one, there is more skin in the game in terms of pride, but at the same time, it also gives a lot of experience to some of these teams. Like, you know, getting battered, like Limitless getting battered 16-0. It's actually like, it's funny, right? It is really funny. But at the same time, it's also like this really humbling experience that some of these players actually really need to kind of make that extra step up, that they kind of like learn, look, this is kind of what the situation is. We're in kind of deep shit in terms of international status. We've got to buck up. Here's where we can learn. Here's where we can start getting ideas. And there's also incentive, obviously, in the prize department for these EU teams. Like,
that's it.
In their eyes, it's like free money, right? But like,
It's
obviously,
the case.
it's not the case. Fragadelphia has still been 17 titles deep. It is still only NA1 teams. So it's always going to be that little bit of extra skin in the game for these teams to kind of get that extra bit of glory and that extra bit of cash as well. So there's so much incentive for Fragadelphia that I'm hoping that they stay with this circuit for as long as possible, because it's a very, very good one. They've got like smaller ones to kind of lead into the main event as well. I just hope they figure out that conflict of interest shit, because that is, I think, the only thing that really frustrated me about the whole thing.
I mean, me and Paladin, we've kind of had this conversation, but Trav, I guess like I haven't really heard your thoughts too much on this, but like obviously it's been a big topic, the conflict of interest, and like I know we've had like certain people get their opinions and be like, oh, you know, it's not a serious event, and like, you know, therefore it doesn't matter that EG have 2 teams which have nearly played for the finals, which like that's like they nearly played in the semi-final. Like that is in my eyes, even though yes, Fragadelphia is not a serious tournament, it doesn't lead to anything serious, there's no, you know, major qualification or anything, you know, any of that malarkey on the line. But I think for me it's just like you just want to avoid it in all cases, because you never want to like undermine what was. I mean, like, just you got to play the devil's advocate. I think for me it was like, if it had been in the semi-finals and it was EG.PA versus EG.CD, and then like there was some like, you know, so like anything fishy that happens, the first thought is, okay, well that's definitely, you know, they're throwing it rowing. And then like that's when Frag, which was a perfect tournament in my eyes, I think it just looked great. Like, I mean, I was even saying on Twitter, like, I think for me it's like I want to do an NA road trip, and I want to go Frag. Like, I just want to go at one point, because it just looks like just a great laugh, and it's like everything you could want, beers and CS. But yeah, like if there's like a conflict of interest, I don't know. For me, I'm still iffy about it.
It's for me, it's sort of, if it's sort of, as you say, I agree, Frag, not a serious event. If it's just localized at Frag only, and especially as they are 2 North American teams, I think it's on the line and maybe a big toe over the line. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very close. But I think for Fragadelphia, I think you could probably just allow it. As you say, there's nothing really on the line apart from bragging rights, really. But I think realistically as well, for EG's sake, do you really want your 2 teams playing against each other anyway? I think it just opens the organisation up to more ridicule than they already are getting. So, yeah, I think for for me, I like it because they need to play. These two EG teams need to have
they need
opportunities to
to. Yeah,
play.
yeah.
That's the whole point of these rosters. Like, who's going to play where, who's going to get the opportunities where. But yeah, I think it's 50-50, maybe 55-45 in the iffy column. But
Yeah.
for me, if you keep it at frag only, it's fine. Anywhere else, don't allow it. Because you're actually, just to add on to that bit at the end, sorry to cut over you, but recently, I had a conversation on Twitter with Gruus, the Norwegian player. He's a member of Skade X, which is Skade's Norwegian roster. They got disqualified from I think the Rotterdam qualifier. And he was putting on Twitter like, "Oh, we're part of a different company in terms of this. Oh, we shouldn't have been disqualified. We've discussed with the admins before, and it's going to be absolutely fine." But realistically,
they're still on the same org.
Surely it might be a different company name, but Skade's X's Twitter links to Skade GG. Skade's website links to Skade X.
Exactly.
He represents the organization with the same logo, the same name. So like, it's gonna happen. And I said to him like, well, maybe you should use your different company name next time. And he was like, yeah, I guess maybe you're right. So that sort of thing is just a bit silly, realistically.
I think they still managed to play the actual open qualifier for the RMRs, which is ridiculous. They played under a different name.
Yes.
And I think that's also ridiculous that they got away with that. There is a Richard Lewis video that you guys should all watch, those that are viewing this video, because it's actually pretty awesome to see about just all of the various. I mean, it's awesome in the sense that we've got like one place to see all these conflicts of interest, but it's also terrible to see what's going on. But I think just the main thing as to why I have an issue with it at Frag is that I know Neo and I talked about this. I didn't actually talk about it on a podcast or anything, but I think that the main problem is that it's so much money at this point in time that it to me it kind of rises from like a C tier event to a B tier event, and you're also involving another region as well who are trying their best to actually win these tournaments outright. And then if you get into a situation where you're on the European side of the bracket, actually, like exactly as we spoke about, the top side of the bracket was Big Academy and Apex, and the bottom side was CD and PA potentially. So let's say PA goes through, and let's say you're Apex or Big Academy. How sour must you think when you're playing this team? When you're like, I don't even think this team deserves to even be here. They could have thrown in the previous game. Like, to me, I think Richard hit the nail on the head. He was discussing that if there even is a potential for a conflict of interest, that is a conflict of interest.
That's
like
it.
The whole theoretical concept of it is a conflict of interest. And to me, I don't think that should be allowed in our esport, just because there needs to be another outlet for some of these teams. I understand that Frag is that event where like all of these kind of developmental teams have come to play, and advanced NA teams come to play. But there's gotta be another solution. Make a separate tournament, make a separate thing for it. Or, EG, maybe fix your damn messaging of having 3 teams in the first place. Like, I don't think people are talking about that enough either. Like, the messaging has been completely dropped by EG. They ask all of the tournament organizers to call all of the teams EG.
It makes no sense.
And the only way you can actually differentiate it is within the actual tournament bracket. If you're a casual fan and you see EG play, and then the next game is also EG, and you see 5 different teams, how are you ever or 5 different players? How are you ever going to wrap that around your brain?
Thankfully, it's at least HLTV. It doesn't allow that. Remember
exactly.
Before, HLTV's naming, one of them has to be Evil Geniuses or EG, and then you can't have another EG because it messes up the database statistics. So, thankfully, that's at least they will keep them as CD and PA.
They don't like that though. EG is a thing. They don't like being called EG. But this is just the classic EG, right? I mean, there's been a lot of people talking about how bad the management is at the top. This should be a simple decision of how you change the name. For example, you have Apex and Apex Rebels, 2 different teams on the same organization. Just change the damn names. Stop being called EG. It doesn't make sense. It's stupid. Why do 15 players all under the same name? That's just moronic. Actually, is moronic. Just change it.
And at Frag, wasn't it EG White and EG Black?
Which was Frag.
Even more confusing somehow.
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous.
I don't even know which one's which. It's actually moronic. I don't know who was black and white. Stupid. EG. This is just classic EG. I mean, this is we all heard.
That's a tangent. That's a tangent.
As an absolute tangent. But just the last thing on Frag. absolutely stunning event. I loved watching it. I normally would not never stay up to like 2-3 a.m. watching NA events because like I just like don't care basically. But that it was brilliant. Like it was just it was such good fun. Like everything about it, the side piece contents, Ryan just fucking grilling me on Twitter, left, right, and centre. Mike grilling me on Twitter as well, just like all the good stuff. Like it was like just good rivalries. And like, obviously like I'm across the pond, I gotta be loud, especially. And you mentioned Paladin as well, like the 16-0 Limitless. Like it was such a wake up call for them. And then literally the next game afterwards, 7 a.m. who just 16-0 Limitless on Nuke gets 16-0'd by EG.PA. I mean, it's just that is content. That is CS:GO. But yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. The grey area stuff as well. Like I think it's just if there's potential for a conflict of interest, it's a conflict of interest. Simple as. You don't want to be the devil's advocate. Just don't mess with it. Simple as. But that was a massive tangent, as this whole podcast is. Paladin, your segment. You want to talk about? Well, I'll let you intro. Bring it in.
Well, we are in a very interesting space right now where IEM Rio's around the corner. RMR season is quickly approaching.
Yeah.
And you've always got to look at the teams and the regions that are peaking at this time. And the one region that you always want to peak, and especially for this situation, especially with IEM Rio coming around, is the Brazilians. Like, holy shit. I mean, these guys have made so many moves, and they're all making a lot of sense right now. They've all been to their benefits, and the region is looking so fantastic right now. You got Pain obviously winning their event in Melbourne, qualifying for, actually they already qualified for conference.
Yeah.
You've got MIBR with Henny, although they didn't actually do as well as we were expecting at EPL. They still did very well for themselves in terms of the quality of CS that they were bringing out, and they also won CCT as well. So those two things go hand in hand. I think that those two teams in particular are doing very well for themselves. Agreed. Imperial looks better with Cello. I think that they look a little bit more modernized. There's a lot more firepower, although it is just Cello fragging up a storm. That's still important to at least like bring some of these veterans along, and I think it's better for the team overall. You've still got Furia waiting in the wings. We still yet to actually see them in this season. Who knows what they might provide? They'll be in Group D of EPL. And then 00 Nation also looking very good for themselves. So, like, all in all, you've got, like, 5 solid teams, some outside teams as well that you could look at in this entire RMR season that you could make a case for, like, most of the teams that are going to make it through are probably going to be BR teams. And I'm totally fine with that this time around. It's going to be a slap in the face for NA teams, and it'll be a successful thing because I know we'll talk about more about what's going on with the major. But this could be a huge deal for some of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, so I've got up of course the Americas RMR. These are the teams who have kind of qualified through, going to be in Stockholm, compete for the RMR, and it's just a sea of green. I mean, it's like 2/3 green. You've got Fury, Imperial, Pain, 00 Nation, MRBR, Oplano, Team One, Arctic, all Brazilian teams. Then you got 9Z, who of course have a coach and a player from Brazil. I mean, like, it's just such a kind of a flurry of Brazilians here, and like we're kind of finally seeing the success come through. I think. You know, for a while when Furia were just absolutely killing it, you know, like a top 10 side, they were just, you know, dumping on everybody. It was like, okay, you know, Brazilian CS is back. Finally, you know, we're seeing these big names come about. They kind of dropped off, I think. I think it's probably the safest thing to say. But they are still finding their form recently. And I think, like, another team that I'll touch on in more detail later, but is Pain. Like, I'm so impressed with Pain. I mean, Paladin, you sort of introduced me to the side. But, like, after seeing them at Melbourne, they have been sort of nothing short of spectacular, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like, they are a really, really exciting side. So I think Brazil seems like it's back. And you look towards the Americas RMR, it's majority Brazilian teams. There's a few kind of not as many NA as probably they would have hoped, which also means that there's a really, really good shot, and probably most likely should be, you know, Brazilian teams making it forward to Rio.
Yeah, I think the thing that's really exciting me is that, one, obviously it's Rio, but two, it's the fact that we're seeing consistency in not just in their own region but in other regions as well. I mean, obviously, sure, Pain won the grand final of Melbourne, which I'm sure you'll get into, Neo, as you were there. I mean, that was just a brilliant tournament with Skulls and Zevi, which we will talk about later. Insane stats recently. But MIBR as well. I had a chance to cast the grand final of CCTEU, which is the game they played against MIBR. And I'm just going to pull up the stats right now. Henny, Exit, and BR Nazan all went nearly +20 combined in that grand final. And one win, their opponents, they're sort of at the moment, I feel like, if you can beat One Win in that sort of tier 2 EU, especially when One Win have players like Deco, for example,
For sure.
I think it shows that you're a very, very good team in EU and tactically as well.
Yeah.
And sure, MLBR, as you say, didn't do that amazing in Pro League, but they still took a map of Big and FaZe, which isn't that bad for a team of that quality.
Yeah.
So I would say, and just looking at CCT right now, they beat Trix 2-1, Monty, who made the RMR 2-1, EC Kiev 2-0, and then another 2-1 against One Win to win the whole event. So honestly, really impressive. I think a team like that getting through to the main event in Rio is almost a must for that organization. If they don't, it'll be a massive disappointment after these recent results. So I think MIBR are in a really good spot at the moment, especially after their recent changes. And Henny's been looking pretty decent, even though he's been around in the scene for what feels like yonks. So now I think it's only fair for you to have a chat about Pain, because they are, I would say, even better.
Yeah, made in Brazil, not making Brazil would be very awkward, to be perfectly honest. But I have a feeling that they're starting to find their form again. I only thing for me is I do feel like for the majority of the sides, there just seems like there's a bit of a ceiling. I feel like Fury have hit their ceiling already. Like when we look back towards kind of the online era when they were absolutely just unstoppable, I kind of feel like they're never going to get back to that. Or they don't seem like they are at all, at the time being anyway. Imperial, to be honest, I'm not really massively impressed with Imperial, generally speaking. I think Cello is a bright spot in what is an underwhelming team for the names that they've got. I think they really are hot and cold, this Imperial side. But yeah, you mentioned Pain. Like, I mean, I love this side, love this team. Partly, I guess for you, the other question I proposed to you when you're talking about Brazil and being them being a bright spot is, do you think there's that kind of that sort of ceiling? Because like for me, it's like I feel like they're not quite at the level and the respect that Brazil kind of used to be.
Yeah, to me, it's more the width of this region rather than the depth, right? Or sorry, maybe the other way around, the depth rather than the width. In terms of like just the pool is actually much deeper this time around.
Yeah.
That you get consistently a very similar level across the board. That one region kind of develops as time goes on. Now, I don't think any of these teams are championship contending. That's very safe to say, right? You just look at the field right now; it's kind of busted in that sense. But I think that Furia is very interesting because, yeah, I'm kind of out on them in general, but you never know how much a team can change when they're playing in a different part of the world. Like that's one thing that I've noticed. At least with Movistar, I know this. It's a very weird comparison to make. Jumping from kind of tier 1.5 to like just max like top tier 1 talent. But winning in Valencia, having the momentum to win Cologne, like that's still really crazy. And I think there's going to be a certain aura around all of these teams in Stockholm this time around, where they're going to be buzzing with this different kind of energy that, hey, I get to play in my damn hometown, like or like my home country, like playing and we'll talk about it a little bit as well. Like they're getting to play in front of it, like a crowd, no matter what, if you qualify. So that is going to be insane. Just playing in front of your countrymen, that's always going to be exciting. And I think that we might actually get a couple of upsets in the sense that we might have some deeper runs that we might normally not see from some of these teams throughout this tournament. I think that is one thing that's exciting, though, that you have teams that could actually you're at this point where these teams could actually upset. It's not oh, can they upset? It's like, yeah, there are statistics and maps that suggest that they can. Like, as you said, Trav, like beating those teams that they did in CCT, doing that online against some of these fraggers who, dude, when they're online and they're playing from home, these guys can absolutely frag up a storm. Obviously, making their way through this open qualifiers is no easy feat. And doing it in the style that they did, it is really impressive. So MIBR taking them down in best of threes, like Monty, like One Win, those are actually, like, they sound like they're kind of whatever results if you're kind of like a tier 1 only watcher. But if you actually look at the tier 2 results that these guys produce, these One Wins, these Monties, it's kind of insane to show that their firepower actually matched up against it. And I think that that's going to be huge when you move into international competition. And against some of these NA teams as well. Like, they're going to just wipe the dust with the wipe the floor with these NA teams.
To add on to that sort of 1 win at Monty thing, I think like just a side note why like people should be impressed with that result is like Trav, you mentioned like 1 win is that side within kind of a tier 2 that everyone like has to be scared of. I mean, Deco is just ridiculous, and he has been for like a year and a half plus. But it's not the fact that they've taken down 2 pretty decent tier 2 sides. 1 win being kind of the better of a really kind of a tough kind of field to traverse your way through, but it's the fact that they're 2 completely different sides. Monty is just like the pugger's paradise of teams. It's just got these insane cracked aimers who don't really follow a set style. They don't really have a set calling strategy. They don't really have kind of a regional displacency, I guess you could say. You look towards like certain teams like CAS rosters normally play very, very slow, very methodical, which is exactly what 1 win do. They're very slow, very methodical. They're very, very tough to break down, especially when on their T sides they're very difficult to read. And then you have Monty, who are just like, guns blazing, sending it left, right, and center, relying on these ridiculous individuals that they've got to kind of really carry them along the way. So it's the fact that MIBR, for me, for a long time, are looking very weak. I mean, they have been for a while, and now they're able to kind of comfortably take down sides who are on completely different ends of the spectrum. One is very, very rigid, very, set in their playstyle, which is very difficult to play against because of how good 1 win actually are and how kind of, impossible a task it seems at times to stop Deco. And then you've got the other side of like Monzi, who are just impossible to read. Like you don't even know what Monty you're getting on the day. So I think my teams misread them in the RMR as well. I think everyone slept on them. We said it though, just to point out. We said before they've made it through that Monty are making it through because we know our shit, people ish. Kind of.
But yeah, I think that's also a very good point about sort of Monty. Right? They are the reason they're having so much success recently for me. It's because they are so unpredictable. They're a new team that no one's heard of.
No one's researched them.
Players, but everyone knows the players, but not the grouping. So, yeah, I think that's what makes MIBR's results all the more impressive. That they're able to find consistency online as well, which is the biggest thing. But yeah, I think is it time for us to talk about the news that has just literally come out?
Before we do it, I want to propose one question, just because we're on the topic of it. I'm talking about Brazil.
Okay.
So, of course, you see, we've got the list of teams here for the Americas RMR. Just quickly, both of you, Trav, you start, Paladin, you follow up to finish off. Which 4 teams are making it through? Who are the 4 in your eyes that are making it through?
6.
6?
It'll be 6 teams.
Oh, yeah, 6 good contenders, right. Give us the 6.
Makes it a bit easier.
Yeah.
6. I'll go for it. I'll say Liquid, Pain...
Mm-hmm.
Liquid, Pain, Furia. If Furia don't make it, it'll be an absolute travesty.
Yes, yeah.
Liquid, Pain, Furia... I want to say Complexity, but they worry me, but I'll say Complexity. Liquid, Pain, Furia, Complexity.
Yeah, that's 4.
MIBR.
One more.
And 9Z or Imperial 50-50.
Okay, all right. Trav? No, sorry, Paladin, sorry, what have we got for me?
So 9Z is actually going through a move. I believe Rox has been
yes, he's no longer on the team. Yeah.
So to me, I mean, I have seen before where they kind of just surprise everybody where when they have a new player in, like you think Lucan at ESL Challenger.
For sure.
And I believe they actually added a player before the RMR as well or something like that. For the last cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Furia, Liquid, and Pain feel like locks to me.
Yeah.
And I think MIBR has the chops to make it through, because then after that you've basically got 2 spots, and I think those are going to be the most contentious.
Yeah.
You've got, I mean, the teams that I can think about that could potentially make it: Imperial, Complexity, 0-0s had now had time to integrate the Godsent bits and pieces. So that could also be a huge thing that could come back to bite them. Team 1 also have an outside chance. I think that out of all the teams, they probably have the most outside chance. Yeah. I don't think EG are going to do it. I don't think that they have the chops. I think ATK, they're a very good team, but they don't have enough LAN experience. And one thing I've noticed is that when they're in a favorable position, but they're in a playoff game, they really struggle. And this is like utmost levels of pressure. Yes, I don't think they're going to be able to do it this time around. You got to give them more international ops before they actually convert. So you're saying basically four teams for like 3 spots, right? Or 4 teams for 2 spots. You know what? I'll go with Imperial just because I want to see them at the major. And just to see the absolute pandemonium that's going to ensue when they play in any of these
we saw the clip,
stages, right?
We
literally saw the clip. Yeah. I want that so badly because it is something that you can show to like anybody that isn't in esports or that is in a different esport. That this is why we have such a good esport. you go to anywhere in the world and you go to a place like Brazil and they still just love this game to pieces. And I think Imperial would give us the peak
What
levels
story.
of
Yeah.
excitement. And so I'm just gonna go with them purely off of nostalgia and the excitement that it can bring.
For sure.
And then I'll be a little cheeky and I'll say complexity as well.
Okay.
Maybe they get their shit together and Hauser takes them over the top.
I do agree with you, by the way. I think 9Z, of course, they've made a change. Imperial, I said 50-50 between those two. I'm actually going to make it 33-33-33 with 0-0 Nation.
Okay.
Because we actually haven't seen them.
Yeah.
We actually haven't seen them really play much ever since they upset Furia in Valencia, didn't we? So they've been very very matches
quiet.
have been very few and far between for those guys. So I really think, as you say, after a bit of work, Coldzera and Taco could be just as good as Fallen and Fur again.
Yes.
So
I guess I'll throw mine out there just to finish things off before we move on. So I think Liquid and Pain are a shoo-in. I mean, I would argue that actually for me, Pain seem just the scariest in terms of what, like, they just don't seem to have like a ceiling at the moment. So I think those two are shoo-ins, like Liquid and Pain. They'll be absolutely fine. I'd be very, very surprised if they don't make through. Furia, you just hope they make it through just because they've been in that tier 1 circuit for such a long time that surely they just have the kind of the experience, the knowledge, just everything over some of these kind of fresher faced teams. So I go with those three to start things off. I think Complexity get very lucky that the rest of the field isn't as strong as them in terms of the individuals. So I feel like they'll make it through. MIBR, so what, that's 5, is it? Furia, Liquid, Pain, Complexity, MIBR, that's 5. And then the last one, I'm actually going to go Imperial as my last one because just like a side note from what I saw at Melbourne. So I don't know why, we still haven't figured it out, but at Melbourne there was like a ridiculous, like a massive Brazilian cohort there, like in the crowd. And I don't know if, like, for some reason Melbourne has like a lot of Brazilians who live there, or where they flew over.
They might have straight up just traveled, dude.
Yeah,
these guys are dedicated.
That's what I'm thinking, right? They actually genuinely could have.
The Ultras. The Ultras.
There was like there was
100%.
a lot, bro. Like it wasn't even a case of maybe 10, 20, 30. I'm talking like 100 to 200 like at least fans in this crowd. There's a massive stadium. The Rod Laver Arena is like, it's like an Olympic stadium. It's huge, and I mean it was packed. And on the final day, when of course it was Imperial versus Pain, it was nuts, and it was like Brazilians just losing their shit. And even funny enough as well, so my uncle lives in Melbourne, and I got him a ticket to come like just like to see me on the desk for a little bit. And he was like working in the city, and so he comes in and he goes into the thing, and he like sent me a video, and he was like oh my fucking god, like these Brazilians are insane, like this is so loud. And I was like, yeah, like they're like the most dedicated fan base, like. So and to add on to that as well, I think Imperial up until the semi-finals were really poor. Like I just think they were poor, but they were just very fortunate they were in an easy group. In essence, essentially, they were in a much easier group to get through. Kind of the two Brazilians and then the two NA teams, two Aussie teams, sorry, who were like, let's not beat around the bush. Vertex aren't a great team. They were playing with 3 stand-ins essentially, so they're not going to be great. And then Greyhound actually are a decent team, but their best player in Vexite wasn't allowed to play, so it's like they had to play with Hats, and they dropped Hats because of performance issues. So it's like, okay, we're sick. They're playing with like the crux of who they had to drop. So it was always going to be the two Brazilians to make it through. That is what happened. But they were really poor, to be perfectly honest. They were dropping maps there. I think Vertex took them to like 16-13 on like Imperial's map pick, and like there's 3 stand-ins and 3 Aussie stand-ins as well. It never should happen. But yeah, I think the crowd from the quarterfinals, semi-finals onwards made Imperial a better team. Like you can see Fallen really bounce off the crowd, and in the semi-finals and finals, he had the best performances he had the entire tournament basically, because the crowd was so behind him. And I think those experienced dudes in Imperial, if and when they have a crowd behind them, I think they're going to be just another level above.
We saw the land buff they get just at the last major, how they beat Forza and the way they did.
Yeah, was it like 9-12 they finished overall, which like, I mean, that never should have happened, like, in any way. So yeah, I generally think Imperial, if they get to like having a crowd behind them, they can become just like another beast. So hopefully we get to see that. And I guess that moves on quite nicely onto our next bit of news, which, so of course, bear in mind, we started recording this at about 3 British time on the 13th, and literally 10 minutes before we went live, we've just had a pretty exciting announcement, to be perfectly honest. So I'll get it up on your screens, so you can see, you can follow along. So IEM Rio is going to be the first major to feature a live audience across all stages. And for those of you who don't understand, I've been given a list of kind of the stuff that's going to be happening, just like a short rundown. So it's Challenger and Legend stages going to have a live audience. They've doubled the capacity of the audience as well. They've got like these gigantic arenas now. I think the original one was like 7.5k seats, and I think like they've like doubled it or something along those lines. They've got a 360-degree center stage, so it's like it's like a football stadium essentially. You know, you got like
Hey, scroll for the concept.
Yeah.
Because those are really.
Here we go. Basically, this is what I mean. Look how insane this is going to be. So right in the middle like that. Also, just a shout out to Nova he works at ESL. He did these graphics. Super talented dude.
Very good.
Incredible graphics. He's a very good. This is all concept art, but this is what they're doing. Instead of it being like a normal stadium, which stage at the back, crowd in front, this is like 360, which is just gonna be nuts. Because the big thing that makes 360 things so impressive, like you see in football, is it is just surround sound, and it's like the noise bounces off each other. You know, and one side's loud, the other side matches it, and when they match it, everyone else matches it, and that's what you're looking for. It's gonna be nuts. On top of that, Gauze, here we go, is gonna be hosting this fan fest, which I mean, we know how popular Gauze is, and the fans that he brings. I mean, anytime he streams, he's averaging like 50k viewers plus. So that's gonna be just fucking mental, which would be sick. And yeah, basically just it's like the first major to ever have like a live audience for every stage is like the main things. But boys, thoughts. I mean, this seems ridiculous. Hence why we want the big names like Imperial to make it as well, because I mean, imagine those two together.
The tournaments that I think about that aren't major related, but they are S tier tournaments. I think about Star Series when they actually had, I believe they had an audience for a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the audience for the beginning portions of it were lessened.
Yeah.
This will still be a very big crowd, but it completely shifts how you view the tournament as a whole.
It does. Yeah.
Pressure gets turned up to 11, and then you kind of and as we say quite often, pressure makes diamonds, and that's where you get kind of better stories. It feels more genuine. So when some of these teams lose, you can say like, hey, look, these guys just weren't up to snuff on the day. They just weren't good enough. And I think obviously if you're playing in Brazil, you're playing against a Brazilian team and you make it through still. Yeah. Hey, I mean, hats off to you. You've still done a very good job to kind of dethrone them. Because I think we'll inevitably have Brazilian teams at the challenger stage.
That's it,
And I think beating them, if you're another like, I don't know. I'll give an example, just like a Monty, and you somehow eke your way through like the Europe RMR in some way, and you have to play a Brazilian team, and you win. Hey, that looks just that much better, even if it's a best of one. But playing in this stadium or just in that hall as well is going to be huge. I mean, to me, there are so many different tournaments. I think about Blast London as well, where there was a lot of talking in the group stage. Like that was really fun. I think that inevitably when we have audiences for all stages, it's going to be just a completely different kettle of fish, and I think whoever wins this major is going to have a different kind of moniker to set for themselves, that hey, we won under these circumstances, and it's that much more impressive.
Agreed.
Because any team that isn't Brazilian is going to have an uphill battle here, I think.
Yeah, I mean I'm scrolling through the Genesi, I think it's pronounced Genesi Arena. I'm scrolling through pictures now, just I mean like how big it actually is in terms of like the amount of people you can fit in here. This is like a John Mayer concert. There's like, I mean, it's going to be nuts. Obviously, this is like a different layout to how they're going to do it. But I mean, even still, you have like kind of the potential to fill out all of these seats in the middle. I mean, it's going to be nuts, to be perfectly honest. And it's exciting. I think it's probably the best way you can put it, because as you mentioned, like Diamonds Made Under Pressure is a classic thing. And if any team squeaks their way through and they're not LAN experienced and not like heavily LAN experienced, they are going to crumble. But then also that makes it the other side of the sword for me. And I was thinking about it. So obviously, you look towards the open quals. Astralis, it took them 4 attempts to make it through the open qual. And it's mainly because, 2 out of 5 of those guys have never played an open qual in their life. So they just weren't ready for these like random teams like Brandenburg, whatever they were called, taken to double OT on overpass. They're not used to these like random advanced puggy mixers who, just you can't call against them. They're just nuts. You've got to win an aim. But then on the other side, in an arena with this amount of people, that's where Astralis will find, they should find a little bit better form over these younger, fresher faced teams.
They've been
Yes.
villains for so long,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Sorry, I just want to make this quick little point. They've been villains for
Yeah.
so long. That stuff doesn't phase them anymore. So some of
Not
these
even
teams that have
slightly.
played that
Yeah.
villain role for so long, it's going to be actually a boon for them.
Yeah.
You know, their other opponents might actually get much more
Yeah.
worried to play in these environments, and
Yeah.
they'll just be cruising through
Yeah.
through some of these
They're
situations.
not going
Those
to care.
scores, we should
It's
look
not
out
gonna
for
phase
them. Yeah.
at all. Like I mean, they're such veterans. But that's the thing for all of the big tier 1 teams. I mean, literally kind of the top 5 here, right? These guys, they're all vets. But the thing that does worry me is if young guys on, like, you know, big teams have, you know, newer additions of young guys who maybe aren't as experienced, but they, you know, we're heavily relying on them to find a lot of success. That's where, you know, that individual could crumble a little bit under the pressure. I mean, it's a whole different kettle of fish competing in front of kind of, you know, 15 to 20,000 people potentially.
Yeah, and obviously, like, that core that you mentioned, like, I think it was Zipex that hadn't played an open qualifier ever,
Yes,
and
yeah, yeah.
Glaive, who hadn't played one for, like, 6 years or something.
Yeah.
Since he was on Heroic, the green logo Heroic. But yeah, I think it's obvious that, you know, that core of Blame F, Farley and Config sort of are the more puggy types, and we'll always have had more experience in that sort of scenario. And I think also for when we get to these crowd stages, even the Challenger stage, as you say, which is going to have a crowd now. Yeah. These even the Brazilian players who have spent their life grinding online, this is going to be. I mean, you mentioned a whole different kettle of fish. This is going to be almost scary for them. They'll be playing without sound on quite often. It's going to be so loud. They're going to be playing without sound, and it'll be a completely new experience. And as all the incredibly experienced LAN players tell you, LAN in front of a crowd is just like a different game. It's not even like, it's just a completely different game. Not even in the saying sense, in the real sense as well. So yeah, it is a worry for those guys, but I think with how it's set up, I still think I'm confident in some of the younger guys that will make a name for themselves. But those experienced heads will have a bit of a buff, I think.
I get worried more about the other side. Like I was saying, kind of like, you know, the new guys joining old guard kind of things. Like I think a really good example is Mouse, for example. You know, they've got 3 academy guys essentially there. You know, Torsi, JDC, Xertion. They're kids. They're literally kids. I mean, like Xertion, I'm pretty sure is still like 17. JDC and Torsi are like 18, 19. So it's like, they are genuinely kids, and like they have never experienced a crowd like this playing wise. I mean, like I think we play. Oh, I don't think it was in the studio, so actually I don't think it was even crowded.
Yeah,
but
there
like,
was no crowd.
They've not experienced properly. Like they've had, you know, like mini crowds at times. But I think for those guys, you know, especially with Miles, who are so reliant on those guys to pop off, and like Torsi has to pop off, Xertion has to pop off, like, or else then, you know, I mean, you're not falling back on fucking Dexter to kill, are you? So, like, that's when I get worried about them.
It's a crowd that's against you, mind you.
Yeah, exactly.
So when they played at Cologne, it felt like Cologne was with them because of JDC, right? Obviously. But this is completely different. You are a villain if you are not Brazilian. Like, it's not like oh, you are a neutral. You are a villain, and that is just how that is how the cookie crumbles. And it's not like that is just how Brazilian fans are. And you're gonna have to be able to deal with that. Another team that I think about is C9, dude. These guys they're a very, very fragile team. And to play against Brazilians like this is in Dallas, man. This is Brazil, and I think that's going to be a very, very interesting
Imperial versus Cloud9 in Stockholm was.
I'd love to watch that. Yeah. Oh man, I'd love to watch that rematch if that could happen.
I think about even like, you know, even if you like, I'm like right now I'm scrolling through some of the teams and just imagining scenarios. Cloud9's a really good example. Even some of the, like, Sprout. I mean, Zyphon's fucking 18 or something like that. I mean, he's still a kid. Lonks is literally like 17, 18. Stair, 19.
Very low LAN experience.
Kids with low LAN experience, as you mentioned. I mean, and then even like some of the bigger names, like Fnatic, for example. Like Fasha is the main part of this team to bring.
This would be like his third. It would be like his third LAN.
He's 26 years old, but he still beats like 3 LANs that are even like worth talking about. So I mean, like, then do you start relying on Nicholas and Roy? But then at times they're a bit flippy. Or do you try and rely on the experience of Crims to pull them across the line? Gets a bit iffy. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very, very interesting scenario. And I also love the thought process of potentially kind of one of these slightly random teams, like, you know, like Sangal or like Gamer Legion or Ecstatic, like squeaking their way through. I mean, Ecstatic is the.
I love Gamer Legion.
Yeah,
team's sick.
It is sick, but like they are still like they're a little bit all over the place. Shuhei is of course same thing, academy team, graduate. Then you're looking towards Acor as the experienced head. I mean, Acor was dropped because he couldn't compete at Tier 1 level, so you get concerned there. Ecstatic was the old Masonic crew who, you know, if you asked them 6 months ago, they were playing in the fucking Dust 2 DK League or whatever it's called in the day, like their Danish ESL Prem. They don't have experience, and like it's quite exciting in terms of sometimes these kids go to like these sort of events and are just like they thrive off the crowd. That's where like I really want Pain to make it through, because Zevi and Skulls with a crowd are orgasmic, just the thought of it. But yeah, so I do get concerned, man. Some of these kids, like I feel like they are going to shit the bed royally when they have 20,000 Brazilian fans booing them.
At the same time, we'll know who's gonna hit different in the future if they thrive.
Yeah, this is where stars are made. Stars are made if you can do what Astralis do, where they've been for a decade just been heckled. Everyone wants to see Astralis fail just because it's funny, right? Like they're like the best team to ever touch CS:GO, like, and like, you know, or the best organization with kind of the history they've got, and you know their era is the longest ever, etc. But yeah, everyone wants to see them fail. They don't care. Like I don't think it's gonna face them. They're such veterans. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're spot on, Trav. Anyone who is like really not experienced LAN wise, but turns up to Brazil, has 20,000 people death threatening them, like booing them, and they come out on top, like that is someone who's built for the future, basically. And of course, everyone, I'm wearing the jersey now, the BNE guys, I'd love to see them there. I mean, I'd be very surprised if they don't make it, to be perfectly honest. I think BNE are really good. I think they're more than capable of taking on, you know, even I think they're in the Group A, which is like full of, I can't remember exactly who's in it, but it's like, I think B8's in that one, like Aurora, and like some of the like the slightly randomish teams. I don't think I'll make it through. Gamer Legion in that one as well. So I'd be very surprised if BNE don't make it through. But yeah, man, that's where stars are made. We'll have to wait and see.
Indeed. And I'll tell you what, as we were speaking about Astralis, I'll quickly jump ahead and just talk about the thing that I also, as again, it's something that happened literally on the sort of the start of our recording the podcast. Jackson. Yeah. Some of you may know him on Twitter, a bit of a leak guy. It's a bit 50-50 on his reports sometimes, but he has got some correct, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. Apparently, Astralis have put in a bid to bring Device back from NIP, and that's talking about how Astralis have been. If they get Device back on the team for Farley, I'm not sure if are they allowed to before the major.
I don't think they are. I'm pretty sure it's already locked. I think so. I don't think.
Pretty sure it's locked. Pretty sure it's locked. But still, like that is another situation where experience can really help you in that. But I think if they do bring Device back, which has been the rumor for. It's been the esports worst kept secret for however long.
Yeah.
I think it's the only thing that can happen to Device's career is to go back.
I mean, he's not going anywhere else. I mean, like you said it, Trav. Like, it is the world's worst kept secret. Everyone knows that he's just trying to force a move back towards Astralis. That's all he wants. Like, he benched himself essentially. I mean, to be fair to him, like he did have a few, let's call them at-home problems. But you know, in the grand scheme of things. He got signed on a mega contract, like €1 million, whatever, €1 million, whatever it was, for like 3 years. Is it 2.5 years? It's getting to the end of those 2.5 years finally, so we might actually see him back and play. But he's only going to Astralis, surely.
Yeah, I think the problem with this is that if there is a roster lock, the next time we would potentially see this guy is like. Not even the fall finals, because straight up, I don't think they're going to qualify through the showdown. So then you don't have a fall final to play. Yeah. And then after that, the only real tournament that's left is the Blast World Final, which again, they wouldn't qualify because of points. So essentially, we wouldn't see Device until next year at the very minimum, basically, if this actually happens. So that's one thing to think about. That sucks. But other than that, I mean, obviously, it is still an amazing move if it can happen. Pound for pound, it's still an upgrade. I think they'd still be one move away. I think they need to get rid of Zipnix. I think it's his time to kind of go.
Call it a day, please.
I think the conversation about some Astralis fans saying that he is having a renaissance is a joke. There is no comeback. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Um,
He's 73 years
let-
old. Like it's not happening.
yeah,
Like,
let him rest.
Yeah.
Let the poor man rest.
Let him go, please.
He's picked up his paycheck. This guy's been paid well. Just let him go.
Let him go.
I
Let
mean,
him go.
there's just so many better players to pick up, in my opinion. I mean, even a player like Fesser on from Astralis Talent,
Thank
like
you.
that would be fantastic. Like I think
However,
there's just so many opportunities.
I can add to that. I have this is again, so this is like, this is just rumors and stuff and whatever I've heard, but apparently Fesser's work ethic is terrible. Apparently it's really
all right.
like absolutely god awful. And to add to it as well, he hangs around with Smooya too much, and I'm not being funny. That is arguably the worst influence of any professional player in the game. And like he's like always hanging around with him, always like on his stream and stuff.
Brother.
And it's like, if you're this kid who has, I mean,
Bad
Fesser
role model.
Fesser is arguably, I think in the Danish scene, one of the brightest spots for the future of the Danish scene. I mean, he's. I watched him in I casted actually. You casted a bit in We Play.
Mm-hmm.
He's stunning. Like I mean, Astralis, that academy side as a whole were pretty meh. Like I wasn't impressed with them at all. But Fesser was brilliant. I mean, like so consistently brilliant. Just brother, like if you're watching, I beg, just get a better role model. Stay away. Go and chat to Astralis. They're in the same complex, bro. Like they go and chat to those guys. Like they will help you. Don't. It's not helping you. Please. But yeah, apparently his work ethic's terrible. But he's a kid, so I mean, he's got to mature.
He's got time.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think there were people calling for him to be the 5th on Gamer Legion, right? Because
Yes, there was.
Tried Ralen. Then they've got Kios from Falcons, and that's just now transpired that he will be playing with them.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable future. So people are saying either Fesser or Kios, and I think that's a pretty good choice.
Yeah.
In the end,
I just think Astralis is just spoiled with too much choice that they shouldn't be in this situation. You are the premier Danish organization that can literally poach from whatever team you ever choose to poach from.
Yeah,
obviously,
they've got unlimited
Heroic,
money, basically.
Except Heroic. I mean, honestly, from what we've been seeing with the financials, it doesn't even look like they have unlimited money. But I think it's more so
True.
they've got like buying power,
And
like
prestige
organizational
kind of thing.
power, right? Yeah. That legacy and that prestige, and you get the opportunity to play with Glaive, you get the opportunity to play with Config, you know,
Blame
like that like if you're a player, like the brain cells in your head are going like, oh my god, this would be stupid not to take this offer. Even though we've seen countless bits of younger players just get absolutely robbed. Bubsky, Lucky, Farley, just absolutely like Asatag, like their kind of career and their how do you say, like, legacy, I guess?
Yeah, you gotta be worried about the other side. Yeah, I think.
Their reputation has kind of been put in the bin, even though they're all, I think, in their own rights, pretty good players before they actually came onto Astralis. Yeah. I think Farley did good work on FPX and the No Chance roster. I think that Lucky still looked very good on Trick. Like, I think he was very good player on him too.
Loved him.
And then and Asatag as well. I mean, I think that his whole bit of like, the jack of all trades and whatnot, and then putting him in absolutely terrible roles that he can't actually perform in was really weird. And I think that if kind of Astralis can figure out a better solution, because oh my god, there are so many solutions, then they'll be better off of it. And
I agree.
I think that's when you kind of see Glaive back in the driver's seat, because right now, that GOAT IGL conversation, it's gonna keep looming, man, as time goes on.
They need to replace it next year. I mean, that has to be the priority. Well, Far League's the priority. Let's be perfectly honest. I mean, his stats are brutal to look at. Like
the weird thing about the GOAT IGL conversation as well. Before I think you've got like a highlight and a low light to go after this, but I'm just going to end this little segment with this. Is that Paragon won't have the stats that Glaive has. I don't think ever.
Agreed.
I think it's probably beyond him that he'll have them as many majors as Glaive. Probably not a shocking statement.
Yeah, he's like 34, 35 or something.
But Carrigan has success with way more teams than Glaive has, and I think that's harder in some
with
ways.
International teams.
With international teams to have success in high tier lands, it's more difficult than what Glaive has done. Even though Glaive has more majors, I think Carrigan made Mouse look incredible for a
somehow.
while. So I think it's a big deal for sure.
I agree.
But anyway, continue with your next part.
I know. I very agree. I think the Far League minus Farley minus Zipnex. It needs to happen, doesn't it? I mean, but then I think Device is a good one. The only thing is he's been out of the game for like 2 years now, more or less.
That's fine, dude. This guy is a consistent monster. I think
Yeah,
there's genuinely never gonna be an issue.
I've been watching
Like
his
if I
demos
could,
from FPL.
yeah,
Scary boy,
he
scary boy.
still looks good, man.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna need maybe like a couple officials for him to like realize, okay, well, this angle switched up here, the meta's kind of switched on this map
True, yeah.
here. We've all heard the stories. He's hit the heat maps, he's hit the demos, he does all the work to make sure that he's up to date.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna take a couple of games, I think, just to get back in the swing of things. I think there is absolutely zero issue to pick this guy up.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm worried about with Device, and this is the thing I literally no information on. I actually tried looking it up, I couldn't even find it. Because obviously, he had or has that stomach issue where every time he goes to a LAN, he's like always super ill, and then he underperforms. Is that like a permanent thing?
Is it a thing Get Right had?
Yeah, I think so. It's like some stomach issue where he gets really ill and nauseous and dizzy.
Crohn's? Is it Crohn's?
Oh, is it Crohn's? No, I don't think it's Crohn's for Device.
I don't think it's Crohn's.
I remember reading it, but he has a stomach issue. I can't remember if that was permanent or whether it was like temporary when he was lost in Astralis before he left, or I don't know.
It felt like it was permanent, but I do think that he's kind of figured out how to deal with it. I think that there was that huge gap on Astralis for a little while where he
was ill,
didn't,
like a lot.
yeah, Dupree had the primary op and he had to take a break. But I think that he's figured it out, because I don't think those problems kind of came up after that happened. I don't think it happened again, and I think that's the main thing.
That's
as long as it doesn't happen again.
Was like if he's still ill, right? If he comes back, and he goes back to being like ill straight away, and it's like, because obviously he's been playing a lot and he's still crisp, but he's playing from the comfort of his bedroom at home, right? He's not playing, 40,000 miles away, God knows where, right? Where he's on like a reverse sleep schedule and whatever, and he's not in his routine. He's taking his meds at weird times, whatever. It's like, it's a completely different scenario. That's the only thing I was thinking of, is like, if he comes back, he's crisp when he's online, but then if he gets in the LAN and he feels ill again, and he goes back to like, he has to take a break, you have to bring a stand-in in, it gets all good. That's the only thing I was thinking of. But hopefully that's not the case. I do want to see him back as well, because like, if you're asking like who's the GOAT, like 4 years ago, he was up in that conversation for a long time. I mean, that was the whole thing, like, was Device the GOAT kind of thing, back to like 2018, 2019.
If he comes back and performs well, it would be one of the biggest CS stories, I think.
Massively.
Just think about like the opping like meta right now. It's very aggressive close range oppers. The meta of quote unquote Device players beyond Shiro is very low. We don't have that many individuals to talk about like that in that time frame. And to have this guy back, to have this guy perform, that changes that dynamic of the game all over again. That's where you've got the copycats come out again. And that's when the meta shifts. This guy is a meta definer, because when this guy was performing, that's what people wanted. People wanted the more, let's sit back, let's hit the shot necessary, let's hold an angle, move back. Like CT opping on Inferno, that guy defined how that is played. But you take a fight down banana, down into T spawn, then you fall back to half wall, then you fall back to spawn, then you fall back to coffins. That's the guy that defined that. There's so many people that were kind of copycat oppers that didn't know how to op, and just copied how Device opt and then looked good.
Yeah.
So
it's smart and efficient. That is Device. He's smart and efficient. He doesn't make movements or shots he doesn't need to take, and he knows the game better than most. So it was like,
but having that player back in the game, right? That would just change how we see the game all over again.
Exactly.
And to have him back, that I feel like there's something missing in CS right now when we don't have Device, and so I just hope he comes back and he gives that little bit more.
I massively agree. All right, we'll move on to we'll move on from the almighty Device, and move on to sort of to my-ish segment, which is kind of my highlights and lowlights of since the last pod. So of course, it's meant to be every 2 weeks. We got busy, people. But one of the things I did get busy with was I was at ESL Challenger Melbourne, which was, the desk was in Stockholm. So first of all, really fun event, I gotta say. My second event for ESL, so it was really good. To get rebooked is always the big thing. Like, I think Ian Chambers told me this, and I've lived by it ever since. But he said to me, it's not the first booking that is the important one, it's the rebooking, because it shows you did well, and that's what I live by. That. So for when I got rebooked for this, I was very happy. And also the teams there were sick. You know, you had OG who were there, 15th in the world at the time coming into that one. You had Tropic, one of the better tier 2 teams. Or, I mean, they've always been in that conversation, pushing towards tier 1. You got Imperial, you know, the old guard, the Brazilian legends. You got these, like, fresh-faced Pain side. Is the other conversation, can EG finally get a map on European soil? You know, a short answer, no. And then you got kind of, you know, a few kind of oddballs. You got kind of, well, obviously Vertex, no one expected much of them. Greyhound, new roster. Unfortunately, now Vex had to play for them. And then Wings Up. You know, nobody knew about Wings Up coming into, well, nobody apart from, like, you know, the few of us diehards who follow Challenger League Asia and follow the agency. I've done quite a lot of the Asian scene recently, so I actually did know about Wings Up and my goats Martin and Lan. But yeah, it was a sick event. I'll get up here, you know, look at the teams, lovely, nice and easy. What do you see at the top there? My highlights, I'm going to have to talk about Pain. I think for me, they have been amazing. I mean, going into this event, I think I'd seen Pain a little bit before they made the changes of bringing Skulls and Zevi in. And they were just like meh. Like, I just remember seeing them and being like, I'm not that impressed. You're whatever. You're just another like, kind of like tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 Brazilian team who's never going to impress me that much. And then I remember I had a conversation with you, Paladin, kind of as sort of prep for Melbourne, which was... you know, talking about the rosters that, like, I didn't really know as much about, which was kind of more, you know, the EG.PAs, your Pains, for example. And you were telling me, okay, you know, look out for Skulls and Zevi. You know, these two kids, they know what's up. I mean, they were without shadow of doubt the two best players at the tournament for me, and on a consistent basis as well. I mean, they for me feel like the future of Brazilian CS:GO. I mean, like, you look at some of their stats. I'll get them up here. I mean, these are kind of the stats of Skulls, who was ridiculous. Also as well. Spoke to him on Twitter, the loveliest dude ever as well. Like, he's like super nice. He dropped me a DM. I was saying like thank you and stuff. Like, I mean, like, what a lovely dude. But I mean, look at the stats. Like, against Imperial, he dropped like, you know, 1.33s. Okay, I had a little bit of a stinker in the middle there, but 1.33, 1.38, 1.6 against Imperial. That's on Dust 2. That is one of the best Dust 2 performances I've seen in a long time, and I hate Dust 2. So for me to even say anything nice about the map, that's how good Skulls was. And you look through that 1.43, 1.68. I mean, it just non-stop bangers after bangers. 1.65, 1.96. Okay, it's against Corinthians, but oh yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he's just dropping like absolute heater after heater. And then sorry to cut you off, Trav, but on the same notion, Zevi as well was absolutely unbelievable. 1.43, 1.57, 1.3. I mean, like, he on such a consistent basis dropping absolute heaters.
There's that line.
2.34 as well. I mean, that is stupid.
That streak.
Look
got
at
up there
this.
That's the scary streak.
It's like, this is ridiculous when you look at these stats. I mean, for me, I cannot see a world where these two don't just continue to get better. And that's why, for me, like, I actually cannot wait for the Americas RMR just to see these two specifically. I don't give a shit about anybody else. These two, because of like how impressed I was. I mean, Zevi just seems like he just doesn't care, like, in the world, like, and then Skulls is just perfect. Like, I didn't see him make mistakes ever, apart from like that one map against Imperial, like, on Nuke. But everyone played badly in that one from them. But that's gonna be my big highlight is these two.
I think two things with these two players is, one, they've proved they can own in their regional scene.
Yeah.
Two, they've got to prove it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think three, what we're seeing so far, at least in the games we've seen them play already, is that when Zevi has a poor game, Skulls steps up.
Exactly.
When Skulls has a poor game, Zevi steps up. So if one of them, or if both of them have a poor game, then where do Pain go from that? I think that's the big factor.
Is. Yeah. You look towards some of the other players. I think another one who I really have to highlight just because of just like, you don't really see people that are so dedicated to the role anymore, but Big Azera is like the world's most dedicated entry I've ever seen. I mean, like, the guy only has a W key. Like, it's ridiculous. And like, but he's very methodical in the way he clears angles. So I was actually really impressed with Big Azera as well. I think he like surprised me because I came into it. I'd seen him on the previous roster. I mean, Paladin, I think you know a little bit better about that previous Pain roster. The two guys that they dropped. And Big Azera was still part.
They had Nithon, and then they had Nekis as well.
That's it, yeah. And I wasn't massively impressed with that roster back then. And I'd seen a bit of Big Azera when he was with them, and it was just like, oh, meh, like, kind of thing. I was like, whatever. But it was sick. Like, at Melbourne, like, he really impressed me, like, with his entering. Like, I think he put up some pretty decent stats as well. And he's so dedicated. Like, even on CT side, they'd be like, they'd be in like a 3 versus 3, and he'd just be like full sending it through, like, like anywhere, like looking for information. I mean, like, he's probably the most dedicated entry I've seen in a long time, especially because that kind of like being an out and out entry is kind of falling away now. It's more leaning in the favor of team based play. But yeah, I mean, Paladin, you open my eyes to Pain, and I'm fully on board now. I'm a huge fan, to be perfectly honest.
So I followed them a lot during ECL, and a lot of the stuff that they had to do in some of these seasons were really difficult.
Yeah.
This roster was always on the cusp of performing, but they never could actually perform.
Yeah.
They had a couple really interesting results. I think the most relevant one that that you guys probably know is the one that they won their showdown over Furia.
Yes.
And they qualified for the fall final or spring final. I'm not really sure. Oh yeah, the Portugal's a spring final. And I think that's where they kind of made their hard cutoff. Nithon was an absolutely fantastic opera, safe as well, where they have this like unbridled aggression, this willingness to completely fight. But the problem was, at least with Nithon, the accuracy wasn't always there, the consistency wasn't there. So he would have some of these aggressive plays, but it wouldn't actually result in the most consistent performances. But the thing about Zebi is now that you bring this guy on, he is doing the same things that Nithon and Safe might have done on Pain, but he's doing it like 20-30% better. And the accuracy of this guy is just insane. Like, he's doing stuff that you see like a Zaiwu do on like Banana, where this guy's like up entering on Banana, like close range AWP, like
insane,
he's fighting CT, like just crazy stuff. And then you've got Skulls just so consistent, like having a consistent rifler like this on this team. I don't think Pain really had that. They were really reliant on their AWP popping off. And I think that they never actually had a true rifle that I would say like, oh, you need to look to this guy. I think you only could really talk about Big Azera because this guy would actually hit the entries every time. And now that's not even necessary. You can get by without Big Azera entering and still have some crazy firepower with that duo. So now you've got like this trio of fraggers that can absolutely cook up a storm. You got PKL with some great mid-rounding. I think this team is very structured in that sense. I think that Pain in general is just such an exciting team. That this team has been like kind of building and restructuring for so long that they finally, I felt like they've gotten the secret sauce of Skulls and Zebi to kind of like bring together this beautiful dish. I think the only thing that is holding them back now is that when they've been pressured, they have looked a little bit malleable and they look like they can bend a little bit.
It nearly happened against Imperial as well. There was
right. I think there's certain situations. When games go long and when games get close, sometimes these guys overthink. I've been seeing certain situations where they've had firepower bail themselves out of these situations
massively.
Not necessarily because they like deserve to win the round, but like Skulls just had something crazy shot.
4K
or like PKL would have some crazy 1v2 or something like that. But that won't happen against top level competition. Like that's just like a thing that we have to see. Like, how are they going to play against a Liquid? How are they going to play against a Furia who tries to throw that same type of style back at them when you've got like 3 of these players running at you, right? K-Sarada, Yuri, and Art, that is going to be a very fearsome trio to play against. So if you want to put your money where your mouth is, and you actually want to show that you've got the chops to tussle, you go through this RMR 3-0.
This is the sort of era though that I feel like teams like this can do it, because
absolutely.
Counter-Strike is at a sort of a level where there's like the meta is pretty defined usually, and teams who are at that level will have been looking at their heroes play, like Art, like K-Sarada, like Fallen, like Fur, and they'll know exactly how to play, and they'll know exactly what to do, and if they've got the talent to do it, they can beat you just like that, just click of a finger, and they're past you in a flash. And I think this is a great chance for these players. Of course, as we said earlier, LAN is a whole different story, but I think that is a very interesting factor for that team. Also, just to mention about PKL, or Pickle, as I affectionately refer to him as sometimes. I remember even watching him on Luminosity in like the old NA Pro League back in 2016, 2018. Like, I remember him seeing him play all the time. And now
that team punched above his weight, didn't it? Like, even that team had some washed players, and they had at least some decent results at DH Opens. Like, I mean, they looked decent considering the players and where they're at now. So that LG team, you're right. It's a great point.
I'm really impressed. I genuinely think this Pain roster can. I think they're gonna keep surprising people, because I think people are only just waking up to them. I think people are still sleeping on. I mean, Paladin, you told me about this, but the CEO of Pain was like, "We've made the 2 best signings in Brazilian history." I mean, that's a fucking statement, isn't it?
Love the confidence, though. Love that.
We made the 2 best
That's
signings
like
in Brazilian
Device
history.
Cristiano Ronaldo. That's
Like,
like
yeah.
that one, isn't it?
Oh, it's like that is a statement if I've ever heard it. But so far, first proper LAN, they take down the old
100%
guard.
win rate.
Yeah,
100%
I
win
mean,
rate.
I'm not being funny. Yeah, I mean, I think Fallen walked away with the MVP of Melbourne, but he also had 2 extra maps against Greyhound, and they farmed the Greyhound in that. So that kind of boosted his stats. But if you look, head to head, it was kind of there was 4 maps played. Yeah, with Pain and Imperial, 3 out of 4 went towards Pain. And Fallen had a pretty decent game in that final, to be fair, but Pain they're a different beast. Like Zevi and Skulls were just ridiculous. I think for me, like I would have personally given Skulls the MVP. Not obviously, I know like he didn't stats wise. I think he was like 0.3 kind of behind Fallen, but for Skulls for me was just brilliant. Like 2 extra maps, and he had like I think he finished on like a 1.22 rating. He had a stunning tournament. I mean, his only negative map in fact was Nuke in that final, and it's not really their best map anyway. And Fallen has been known historically for being so good at calling on Nuke. I mean, it's like it was his map for a long, long time. So, I'm really impressed. I think.
Remember there was a period where he didn't play it for ages, though. Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
SK permed it, yeah?
Yeah, SK permed it.
SK permed it, and he hadn't played it for ages. And like that first time he played it when he was on Liquid was like the first time in
a
like
long
3
time.
years,
Yeah,
or something. Yeah.
And he was fairly farmed as well, and he was really good. Like he is very good on Nuke. Like I mean, he's just like one of those guys. He just knows how to play. I think that some people really overthink Nuke. I don't think of it like as linear as it should be. But Fallen's he's very smart. He had a cracking game. But in that final, Fallen actually played really well. But on that kind of notion that we were talking about earlier about Imperial bouncing off the crowd, the Pain guys, especially Zevi. Zevi was so emotive, like, which I think is also a blessing and a curse. But like, I even remember him. So when they took down Imperial and Dust 2 in the best of 1. He stood up and was shouting like it was something like Grisha or something like that, like Grisha Cello, and he was like shouting at Cello, and I don't know what it means, but it was like there's like a good like rivalry building there, and he was like proper going off the crowd, like he would do a clutch, he'd stand up, and the crowd would just go like just wild basically. So like I think if that Pain well not if I think when, because I do think Pain will make it through the RMR and they'll make it to the live crowd. I think. Like I think this team will find even better form, and of course, like we said, they're not they're not the bad guys, they're the heroes. They're gonna get such good live support, which I think, especially those young guys of Skulls and Zevi, they really played off the crowd really well. And then you got the experience of PKL, who I mean he's no kind of he's not new to this at all. So I'm like, patiently excited, basically.
Before we move on to the unfortunate low light, I've got a question for you about the crowd thing. If Brazilian teams play against each other.
Yeah.
Would you expect Fallen and Fur to get more?
Absolutely.
It happened at Melbourne in the final. They were all Imperial. Everyone was like, everyone was but it was actually kind of funny. Like everyone was Imperial, and then they started losing, and then it kind of like they would cheer for both basically. And then like I think that final map, I can't remember the. I'm pretty sure Pain. It was relatively close, like 16-12 or something in that final map. And
was it a blowout? I thought it was a blowout.
No. They were like first map was OT. I remember that. As Overpass, and then Nuke was second.
Oh no, you
map,
actually bang on.
It was D2. There you go, yeah, D2. And it was see, my sleep deprivation didn't affect my memory.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I mentioned sleep deprivation because it was Melbourne, but we were in Stockholm, which is where ESL Studio is, or one of their studios. So we were literally on a reverse schedule. We'd start at our call time was midnight. And we'd finish the day at midday. So we work in complete reverse schedule. Then we go to bed. So I'd wake up. I go to sleep at 1 in the afternoon. And I'd wake up at 10:30 p.m. And then have a shower, get dinner. So I was always eating dinner. I never had breakfast. It was always I'd you know what? I'd wake up and have a Mackey's or whatever.
ESL, thanks for not hiring me for Melbourne. I appreciate it.
ESL, I know, right?
Give me Rotterdam,
I was telling,
please.
Yeah. I was telling Neo the exact same thing. No. I was like, look, man, hats off to you, but I couldn't do that. I just couldn't.
Yeah, I was like, and also as well, like it was like kind of a hard reset because I had Insomnia, the UK LAN gig, literally the day before. So it was like I didn't even get to like
your IRL as well.
Yeah, in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. So I didn't have time to like set my schedule. So I think the first day I stayed up for 25 and a half hours, and Jazz or Veracity, she had another gig the day before as well. Or no, she just got back from Gamescom like not long ago. And she woke up at like 6 a.m. on the day of a flight. So she ended up being up for like 27, 28 hours. So it was yeah. But as much as like the first day, but the first day's a rehearsal day anyways, it doesn't really matter too much. You just go in, check the mics, know what you're doing. Like, and we like all of us there. It was like me, Alan, Hedger, and Veracity. We've all done a studio before, so like we weren't like new to it by any means. So let's go in, check your mics, speak to the prod guys, say hello, and then that was it. And then we could go on our way. But they, yeah, I mean, after that was fine. Like I kind of set my by staying up for 24 hours, I kind of like hard reset my schedule, so it was all right. But ESL, thank you for hiring me. It was actually good fun, despite the sleep schedule. It was good fun, and some of the content as well. The Shuey, the almighty Shuey that I had on the desk was people love that one.
Fragbite legend.
Fragbite did an article exactly. Yeah, all my German fans. But no, it was really good. I'm really impressed with playing. That was my highlight. Just a slight addition to my highlights. I normally wouldn't do one, but I do want to highlight another one, which is Wings Up. I like finally people seem to be waking up to Asian CS:GO. I saw people having this conversation, so I'm not going to claim this point as my own, but I agree with it massively. I think Blair made it, I want to say, which was, they've only got 4 teams in that Asian RMR compared to like, what is it, like 8 or whatever in NA. But like, I would say 3rd, 4th in Asia. Oh no, actually, I think it was Alan who said this. I think it's so 3rd, 4th in Asia is better than, in my eyes, kind of 5th to 8th in NA. Like I mean, Rare Atom are better than the majority of NA teams, like in America's RMR, that is. Like I think like they would really put a number on a lot of those teams. I think people really don't understand actually how good Rare Atom are. I mean, like Kaze and Jam Young are cracked, like seriously good. Tai Lu aren't that great anymore, to be perfectly honest, but he's still got Lin Vision and the Wings who are pretty decent. Wings Up, we've seen they took down OG, which, to be perfectly honest, if Endpoint taking down Na'Vi hadn't happened literally like 4 hours before because of the reverse schedule, that would have been the upset of the year. Like, there's no two ways about it. The 15th best team in the world being taken down by Wings Up, who, going into the tournament, I saw people online didn't even know who Wings Up were. Because obviously, like, a lot of people just follow like kind of tier 1 EU, whatever. But and like it wasn't a fluke either. Like, they absolutely destroyed OG. Like, there was no fluke there. They completely pulled them apart. Like they played Dexter like a fucking fiddle. Like, he tried to do his standard aggro warping, and he was getting just railed on a regular basis. Flames couldn't find any success either. Fiku was actually a bit of a bright spot, to be perfectly honest, because the rest of the team are pretty underperforming. But yeah, I think generally speaking, Wings Up finally get a bit of respect deserved. Asian CS:GO as a whole is finally getting a bit of respect. Hence why. No, they didn't. They lost to Rare Atom. I mean, which is absolutely fair enough.
Rare Atom are sick.
Yeah, exactly.
So who's in that Asia RMR again? It's like that weird team with Facecrack and Davkos.
Yeah, GG How International. My goats. I cast them getting through the Middle East. They're sick. Like, they're actually sick. So it's IHC, which I don't think there's any.
Greyhound, right?
Yeah, Greyhound, IHC, Rare Atom, and GG How International. So GG How made it through the Middle East qualifier, and then through the Asia qualifier, because there was 2. There was like rest of Asia and then like Central Asia. It was like China and then rest of Asia. So rest of Asia was IHC. Greyhound made it through Oceanic. Rare Atom made it through the China qualifier. They took down Wings Up in the final, and that was a 2-0, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, Rare Atom they are better. There's no argument there. And then GG How made it through the Middle East one. Again, absolutely fair enough, because they're far more. It's like Facecrack and Davkos, who are sick, and then Meztul, who, if any of you kind of know the intricacies of CS:GO in a lower level, like, he's an absolute farmer on FPL. So it's a really decent team. It's a decent qualifier, but it's the same thing. Like, it should just have more spots. Like, it should have at least 8 teams there. I would love to have seen kind of even just maybe one more from kind of the China qualifier, being a Wings Up. Oceania doesn't need another one, let's be perfectly honest. Greyhound's the only competent team there. Encore no longer a thing, to be honest. And Vertex have 3 stand-ins, so we don't need to talk about them. But yeah, basically they just need more spots, because I do think Like if NA, which is just not good, if they're getting spots, I don't understand why Asia aren't. Like I think I think it's blatant disrespect, to be perfectly honest.
Is that a good segue to your low light then?
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic segue to the lowest of lowest of light, and I've been saying this for a while. EG.PA, my god, like I know they're like sitting on a high right now of winning frag, and like fair play to them, like they actually played alright at frag, but it's home soil. The whole point of this squad, Aleksib there sitting there, he's waiting for his opportunity, but EG.PA, man, like this team, the whole inception of this party astronauts roster being picked up was they are going to be the team that represent EG in the kind of the tier 2, so the non-tier 1 tournaments essentially internationally. They are, if I'm right in saying, and I was doing some research before, if I'm right in saying they are yet to take not a series, a map on international soil. So what is going on? Like, I mean, it just feels like at this point, let the Carpe Diem guys have a go, because they're just not a good side. I think if I'm right in saying at Melbourne, they might have actually been the worst rated team at the entire tournament. I'm pretty sure let me have a look. I'll get the statistics up. I'm pretty sure.
To be honest, though, from what I saw from Carpe, they look worse at
yeah,
frags,
that's the thing, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, EG.PA had
I'm going to let
a
Paladin have this one, though. This is all Paladin. I'm not going to butt in with this one.
Just to add to that note, they were the worst rated team at Melbourne. So they got absolutely dumpstered at Pinnacle. Like they got rolled. Like there was they weren't even competitive. They were actually just there to just kind of like they may as well just made an elongated ad break, to be perfectly honest. Because like Finest absolutely just destroyed them in that best of 3, and they had a best of 1 before that. I can't remember who it was against, but it was someone way out of their league. But at Melbourne, Vertex performed better as a roster than EG.PA did. Yes, okay, you can make the argument that EG.PA had a harder group, but at the same time, if they had such a harder group, how come Wings Up are taken down, OG? Okay, Pay and Imperial, they're always going to make it through. Look to the other side. Entropic were garbage at Melbourne. Like, they were actually just, like, they were just, like, not competitive really at all. EG.PA, they're the worst rated team. 0.77 as a whole roster. They only played 3 maps because they lost so quickly. Like, they were the worst team at the entire event. Like, it's bad. I mean, like, it's getting to the point now, it's like, what is going, like, what do EG do? Like, do they try and make changes to this team? Because they're never going to compete in tier 2, it seems. At the moment, that is. Of course, I'd like for them to... Because I like Jonji, for example. Like, I've actually spoken to Jonji before, and he seems like the loveliest dude. I know what they're trying to do, but they have to be my low light. I mean, this is now multiple international tournaments where they're actually just wasting everyone's time. Actually, Paladin waiting. But, go on. Paladin, I mean, I know you've got an answer to this, but... brother, like, you've got to open my eyes, because I just don't see anything rewarding about this EG.PA side.
So I'll give you some just results, right? So the Pinnacle Cup Championship that they played against Astralis, who were the champions, or sorry, they were the finalists of that tournament.
Yeah, they lost to Heroic, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Finest, who were stand-ins for this tournament, but regardless, they are a very, very good side at that point in time. That roster should be beating EG.PA almost 90% of NA anyways.
Yes.
So I don't think that's a product of PA. Also, EG.PA, I don't even know how much time they knew that they were actually playing this tournament. Because this is the first tournament where EG, because EG was signed on to play this, and people thought and assumed, even HLTV did, that it would be their main roster, and then it ended up being PA. So we didn't actually know how much.
6 days. Someone told me that it was 6 days notice. So that's what I mean. Like I mean, fine. Like you never expect anything from the Pinnacle, but I mean, it's now that it's like multiple tournaments where it's like, I mean, even conference.
So you're telling me that they've traveled internationally twice. Once to Denmark, right? Okay, and again with 6 days notice, and then to Melbourne from NA. Okay.
Yeah, but everybody had the same problem. Everybody travelled to Melbourne, apart from the two Aussie teams, who they didn't even play.
Okay, so when I travel to Stockholm, it takes me 14 hours to get to Sweden.
Yeah.
And I feel like absolutely horseshit when I wake up and I get there, okay? I wake up at like 3 a.m., okay? Yeah. I can't imagine them having to go even further to the UK and basically have almost a day and a half's worth of travel, and then have to play against Entropic, and then the eventual semi-finalists of the tournament in Wings Up, who again beat OG.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
These guys also Wings Up probably didn't have any jet lag whatsoever. And Tropic, these guys play at 3 a.m. like all the time. They play like the whole day, like every
That's
day
true,
for
that is
like
very
365 days of the year.
That is very
Like
true.
the teams that they've lost to, I genuinely think they should lose to. And 9 times out of 10, I think if you get any teams from NA, if you get an ATK, if you get a Team One, I think they all lose in these situations. I think they deserve to lose because the region is still not good enough. But at the same time, I don't think you can dig that at EG.PA because at the fact of the matter is when you put them in actual domestic situations, when you put them in a Fragadelphia, they are the better team.
Yeah.
They are messy, but they are still the better team.
Yeah.
And I think objectively, right now in the scene, if you had to put forward a team in the tier 2 space, the tier 1.5 space, you have to put forward EG.PA. They did it against Big Academy, who took down Apex. And again, if we want to talk about like intangibles, Strox is a major winner. There should be all the pressure on Big Academy not to win this series,
agreed.
and they still came out on top.
No.
And then on top of that, look, Big Academy, most informed team at the event. And then you have EG.PA, backs against the wall in Mirage, down 14-12, Jounji on an eco, knifing through through a flank down mid, through Sniper's Nest back in a back B, and winning off of eco, coming back and winning. These kinds of stories that EG.PA has, the intangibles that this team has, I think goes beyond the international map wins that they've had. Because straight up, they've not had enough experience to play. They've had one EPL, and then they've had PCC, and then they've had Melbourne, and they've been dealt terrible hands in all 3 of these tournaments. So I don't want to, like, I mean, obviously it is a low light when you look at the results on paper. Like, objectively, they are low lights. But to me, it's like, they should be lowlights because they're just not up to snuff yet. I think that they're still doing their job in domestic.
So what you're saying is that Neo is shitting on EG.PA for no reason, is what you're telling me?
No, but
yes.
no, okay.
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair.
No, I am. But hear me out. What I'm saying is the entire point of this EG.PA side was for them to compete in tier tournaments. And I know you can bring up like, oh, they haven't had experience. But like that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is the whole point was this side was meant to compete in tier 2. They were meant to be like the side that could be in every other tournament apart from the tier 1 ones, of course, which the normal EG roster. Yeah, but like,
what other tournaments are there?
What I'm saying is this squad is never going to be competitive. So why are they still trying to push this across the line? Like, I'm not being funny. I know they're great, but like Pone alone is getting on a bit. He's what, 31 or something.
Then who would you bring from North America?
What I'm saying is like, no, I'm not saying there's like better rosters is not what I'm saying. I'm saying there needs to be changes because I feel like EG.PA are going to keep going to these tournaments and just keep getting rolled, and this is going to be a constant. Like, I don't know why they're just sitting on this. Like, I don't like that. That's for me what I don't get. It's like sure, like if any other team goes to these sort of tournaments and they're expected to go, not maybe to compete, but expected to go to regular basis to these tier 2 tournaments, quote unquote, and be a representative. And you know, the most rounds that they got was this 16-11 against Wings Up. Like that is like that was their highlight of the tournament. It was 11 rounds against Wings Up, from who, you know, going to one like no one even knew who they were basically, and that was on their pick of Nuke. It's like, you know, just something has to change. They can't just keep. For me, I don't see the point in just sitting on this roster. And because I don't know the NA scene as detailed as you do, but like, you know, I feel like if anybody else in EU, we see teams start to like middle out, or, you know, they're expected to compete and they don't, changes are made so immediately. But, you know, there just doesn't seem to be that initiative over towards EG.PA where they're just like, okay, cool, you know, we went to Melbourne, we got absolutely dumpstered, cool, we'll just try again the next one. It's like, well then, like, surely there's no changes, and of course they're not getting the experience, which is fair enough. But, you know, I don't know. For me, it just seems weird. And then I don't know what needs to be changed, but I'm not impressed with the EG.PA side because it just doesn't seem like there's any initiative to ever improve the EG.PA side, if that makes sense.
I have one thing that I'm going to mention for both EG sides, for CD and PA. We know that Junior has had his struggles everywhere, but I'm telling you right now, get Junior on PA or get Junior on CD instead of Wiz. Yeah. Every time I've watched Wiz play, he's either got 13 or 15. I don't think I've seen Wiz break 20 kills in like every single time I've ever watched him play. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But like he's like always like 15 to 15 or something. Maybe it's just his style, but like it feels like he has barely any impact.
I agree.
Get Junior on either one of these 2 EG teams, and it improves them exponentially for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is though, I actually really like Pwn alone as an AWPer. Like, I actually do think he's pretty good. But I agree. I just feel like something needs to change. Junior is a 50-50 one for me, just because I think Junior is the biggest mentality player. I think he's such a confidence player, and brother, his confidence is bad. His confidence is poor. Get shaken. Like,
fallen again.
Bring him back. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you're kind of like, if you get what I mean, what I'm saying, but it just seems like they're sitting on the same roster and they're always got the same results. They're never ever going to be able to compete with tier 2, like EU with this roster. And I just like, it gets to like, for me, I just can't wrap my head around kind of like, what's the point? Like I just feel like you're wasting your own time. Like you can't compete. You can't compete with tier U China. Never mind tier U EU. So I mean, like,
you're supporting.
EU can't even EU can't even compete against Asia right now. Like what? Like OG lost to Wings Up. Like I'm not
backing OG by any means either.
So I think my issue right now is that I think that this team still hasn't had enough events to suggest these things yet. Like two or three events, which one they won on home soil. I think that is still showing that this team has potential and it still has experience to actually take it over the top as far as American tournaments are concerned.
Yeah.
I think that this team still needs like 4 to 6 months to go international, play in these ESL challengers. If they qualify for each ones, that just showing up to any of these tournaments is already experience in and of itself. Now, let's say they play 3 or 4 more tournaments and they bomb out of all of those. That's when I'm like, okay, yeah, we've done our fair shot. We've played under the EG.PA banner long enough.
Yeah,
it makes sense to kind of make another change. Maybe we shuffle with CD and PA players and come up with a better idea. Maybe we pull down Breezy and Cirque after God knows how long of check stealing on the EG main roster, and we put them on the PA and CD roster and make them actually learn how to play the game again. Like, I think there's so many different permutations that you can do, but you've got to let all of these players and these teams play it out a little bit. I think there's still let CD play through a whole season with Rush and Sanisov for a season, or maybe 2.
Well, that's the other one. Do you maybe ever bring Rush up? Because I mean, I don't know. You know, I feel like his performances individually haven't been.
He's already gone down once. Like, he's just bouncing around.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things. But like, I mean, I still feel like I think he could help. To be perfectly honest, it's kind of
I think CD their sights should be set on winning ECL. Like if you have Stanislaw and Rush in your team, you have to win.
Of course,
and if they win, obviously they don't get the conference spot because EG is a partner team and they cannot qualify for EPL. So they'd have to give away their spot, and at that point it'd be like, hey, look, we as a roster have done our job and you've achieved quote unquote the pinnacle that our roster is supposed to achieve. Now let's change it up. These players are ready to move up, and then we'll start chopping and changing as we need to. I think that we've got to give it a couple ECL seasons. We've got to give PA a couple more. You got to give them Rotterdam. You got to give them maybe in quote unquote Anaheim if that's what the first February tournament is. I don't really know what it's going to be.
It's a speculation.
But we're probably gonna have an ESL Challenger in NA. Let them play that out. Let's see how that goes. And then, make a call from there. And obviously, I think they're gonna the main roster is gonna bomb out of the RMR, and then changes will have to be made. Players will have to be moved up and down. I think that's when you gotta make a decision.
The whole org needs changes. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. Like that first, you mentioned Cirque and Breeze. I just add on to that just before we jump in, Trav. Like, I mean, Cirque and Breeze, like, give it up, boys. Like, let's move on. It's your day's done. You've got your paychecks. You're set for life. You're big chilling. Now, let's save automatic. I think is probably the priority here. Like, this guy needs help from
in the open qual were ridiculous.
Yeah, he needs help from like Jesus himself. Like, honestly. But yeah, I just like, for me, it's just like how many tournaments do we finally be like, okay, now PA needs changes. I mean, the whole org needs changes. Let's be perfectly honest. But I think PA for me is like my low light just because I've seen them recently and like the 2 instances. Of course, I know it's only 2 instances, but like you get a pretty clear understanding of like how good, or in this case, how bad they actually are, especially on an international scale. Domestically, of course, they're fine, but I mean that says everything about NA. Let's be perfectly honest. But
I don't know, man. I
just quickly, Paladin, just to add on, are they in the open quals for Rotterdam, PA?
So
I know there's one more NA open qual, if I'm right in saying.
Yeah, I don't gotten information that they have. To be completely honest with you, I think another big issue about EG.PA in general is that they don't play enough.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
agree.
I don't.
And they got a 5 map pool as well.
Yeah, they've got a 5 map pool, and it's just like, I think the biggest issue for these EG teams is they just don't play enough.
Yeah.
And maybe you can say like, oh, they don't have an opportunity to. Why isn't EGCD playing NACCT? Like, genuinely, why
Yeah,
aren't they playing?
I don't get it.
Why isn't even PA like playing some of the?
Might be an
I don't
invite
under.
team. Might be a playoff
Yeah,
invite team, I reckon.
yeah,
for an ATC
but
team.
I
Well,
don't. I
CD,
think
you mean?
if I think PA will be the invite team for CCT.
Ah,
But
okay.
where is CD? Like I
Yeah.
just okay. So if obviously we'll have to see who the playoff teams are, and if it is PA, then okay, obviously you don't want CD playing to the group stage and qualifying and playing PA, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But
And vice
I think that
versa.
it's ridiculous that these officials that they're not playing is super concerning. Like,
Yeah.
they need to play more. I think that is their issue. I do
Agreed.
not think it is a case of they are not good. I think they are not playing enough because, again, you get to play only 3 maps internationally as a whole, and you're sent packing. And Fragadelphia, I think they got better over time. I think that they
did
looked
actually. Yeah.
very whatever at the beginning of the event, and as things got harder for these teams, they got better. And I think that that's what they need. They need reps. I think all these teams need
Yeah.
reps.
And I think the underscore for me, and sort of my finishing point on these EG teams, is that sure, EG as an organization, I think gets the most stick, more than anything else. I think, but realistically, they are still giving two teams, sorry, i.e. PA and CD, after they were dropped from RBG or left RBG.
Yeah.
They're giving them salary, which is helping teams progress. Sure, they need to be given more opportunities. That's Paladin's whole point. They need to be given these chances to play more and earn this salary that they're getting. But realistically, EG are doing a good thing by helping these two teams. And I'm sure maybe the results won't show it, but it can only be good for those players in particular, and maybe more they bring up in the future.
Yeah, I feel like they help the scene but limit. They help the scene but limit the players. If that makes sense, because of the lack of opportunities.
Well, what's the point of a salary if you're not actually earning that salary, right? Like, as you're saying, Trav, it's like you should be in a situation where you are the pinnacle of your organization or your region, be getting contracted to this organization. Like, you should be kind of trouncing some of these oppositions.
Yeah.
But they're not even getting that opportunity to trounce those oppositions. Like, I think that in and of itself is an issue. Like, I think they've got to plan out what their actual futures are going to be per roster and go about it that way, because right now it just feels like a very PCC type situation where we give them 6 days notice and hey, we just throw them to the wolves. And I don't think you can't do that with these rosters. You can't throw them to the wolves. You've got to have some kind of plan. And I think I'm not going to dog on PA and CD as rosters. I'm going to dog on EG as a whole because they have absolutely no idea what to do with these players when they should have figured it out a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm not dogging on the teams because I mean, realistically as well, PA were never going to be a team who were in that conversation, but it's the org as a whole. They have the money, they have the support, they have the financial backing, they have everything, right? And they have, the respect of NNA to have the pulling power to upgrade a roster, and they're not. So they're not giving this roster time to improve. They're not giving them opportunities to improve, and they're just throwing them to the wolves or to the lions every single event. It's like, for me, it's just, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, when do they try and fix this? But it seems at the same time like
they have no time now, right?
Yeah,
they've got to wait till next year.
And
they're genuinely not gonna have anything to play until next year, man.
That's the worst part about these, with the roster locks and everything, and the fact they can't play events that other EG teams are playing. They're just not getting the chances.
Yeah,
that's why I feel like one of the main reasons why this project will probably fail.
No, I literally, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, I like the rosters. Like I said, I mean, I like John G personally, and I like the teams. I think Poland's a great AWPer. I think, the caliber, even over towards CD, I think there's bright sparks there. Of course, you talk about Stanislaw and Rush, but the youngsters in that team, I think they have a future, and it's really good for them to have this financial backing because it means they can actually spend their day pursuing their career, pursuing their dream, right? This is what you're looking for. You know, they have the actual financial backing that they need to live and thrive and play CS full time. However, they're just not ready. Like, PA aren't ready for the international scene. That's abundantly clear. And they're not ready as this roster. Do they make changes? Are EG ever going to pull their thumb out their arse and actually make a change? Who fucking knows, to be perfectly honest. Because it just seems like the organization are, like, clueless. I mean, even on the most basic scale, when they want all 3 rosters, all 15 players to be called EG, like, you morons, that's not how it works. Like, I just simply put, it's not how it works. Like, you can't do that. Like, it's just exactly.
We've been over that.
So
let's stop blaming them. We get it.
That's just what I was gonna say. It just feels like somebody needs to change. That's my low light, because I just feel like it's not changing. And as you mentioned, with the roster locks, now there's, you know, you got to feel for them. I hope that they're playing in the open qualifier, because there's only one more spot for Rotterdam, and Rotterdam's stacked as well, which is actually what we're going to move on to next.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
We can move straight on to Rotterdam, which is and I'll start as well. I'll just show you kind of the teams we've got from NA, which is Team 1, Squad 2, Squad, and ATK are locked in. Squad 1 ATK were invited. Team 1 made it through the open qual. There's one more spot. There's one more open qual for NA. EG.PA, they need to get through, and they need to then prove it. The only thing is, though, when you look towards the Rotterdam teams that are invited, I mean, it is spicy. There's some sick teams. You got Movistar, Mouse, ENCE, Outsiders, and then Nixa. And for those who don't know who Nixa are, they're a South African side. They made it through the South African close qualifier, and there's still 1 Europe qualifier, 1 NA, and 1 SA. So I mean,
yeah.
I mean, there's some talent. I mean, seriously, the only sad thing I'm right in saying is that we won't be seeing Pain or Imperial in Melbourne, which really sucks, because they were originally going to be part of the closed qualifier for South America, and for me, I think that was more or less a shoe-in for literally being one of those 2 making it through. It's kind of just who shows up on the day, but they pulled out because they have got the Flowfire thing in Barcelona, which we spoke about last episode. So they're going to that, which overlaps, unfortunately. So,
and realistically, I think that's not a bad thing, because one, they were literally in the grand final of the previous Challenger, so it gives other teams from the region a chance. And 2, if Pain won, they're already qualified for conference anyway, right?
Well, so if Imperial, because Imperial got the spot because Pain already qualified for Melbourne, so they're both already qualified. They don't care. It was about playing for the 40 grand for first place, which even then is much harder than Melbourne. I mean, like, going in towards Melbourne, I mean, I said on day 1 on the desk that Pain are winning it, and they did, because, you know, I swear I get paid to this job. I mean, Rotterdam's harder to call, though.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think just before I let you carry on, Paladin, I'll just mention my big highlight that I'm just looking at the teams here is the fact that we could see Sun Pius play against his former team for the first time.
Yes.
That's just spicy. That's so spicy. I think all of the close qualifiers, we've got some really exciting stories. I think in NA, you've got, I think, objectively, like 3 of the best teams in, like, Tier 2 in North America right now. Team 1 doing absolutely fantastic. They've been in, like, this rock-solid form recently.
I'm loving them.
Squirtle Squad, obviously, beating Apex in a best-of-3 is also really impressive. They've got a lot of firepower to give. ATK, I think they do very well in these qualifiers, and if they could have an international opportunity, that's really big.
Yeah.
And then obviously we don't know who that second open qualifier is, but in the Europe qualifiers, having an opportunity to see Sprout on land, this new Sprout roster, that would be super exciting. Potentially another 1-win LAN. Forza's first ESL Challenger on land. Like, these are all really exciting. And then in South America as well, we've still got some good teams. Like Oplano, to see Kanji back on land would be crazy. Fluxo, who's been, like, snubbed time and time again in some of these open qualifiers for the RMR.
They won SACCT.
They won SACCT.
And then they beat Pain. Like, they smacked them around 2-0 in the final.
Woody's back, boys. I didn't think he had it in him after a dire time on MIBR. I thought Woody was, I was never going to hear from him, to be perfectly honest, apart from kind of domestic Brazilian things. But now he's back. He's back.
So now you have those 3 teams joining this crop of rosters.
Yeah.
I mean, Novistar obviously having huge troubles with the whole failing to qualify for the RMR and whatnot. But now they've got an opportunity to bounce back, and they did it at Valencia. Obviously, it's a different location, but hey, you've got another op there. You've got Mouse trying to kind of shut down the naysayers, bringing in Xertion and saying that this move was actually worth it.
Yeah.
And honestly, Outsiders is looking really threatening with Fame and Norbert, they
Fame and
actually
Norbert
look
be
very good.
stepping up big time, yeah.
And so we don't know what Ents is gonna be like, whether they're the favorites or not. But that could be a very exciting roster as well. So like, dude, this playoff bracket is gonna be crazy. I think.
Yeah, we spoke about kind of the potential some players playing as Movistar, but like for me, Movistar they're just not that team anymore. I don't know what's going on, but like I watched a lot of them in the EU RMR, and like they are like they're so like the way they were playing was so bad that like it's like shocking. Yeah. I mean, and the funny thing about it as well is that some Pius, like he wasn't like a hard carry in the sense that, like, you know, he wasn't a guy who was putting the team on his back, game in, game out, dropping like a 1.4, 1.5 each and every time. Like, it was a team performance. That's what made Movistar really cool. It was like, you know, this Spanish team all bonding together. Some Pius obviously is like one of the bigger names, but as a general whole, they were all playing very well. But my God, were they poor. Like, the third and fourth EURMR, like, I watched a couple of their best of ones. They were dreadful. They just looked lost, they're confused. And I even think, like, Martinza, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Martineza, yeah. I actually don't think he's even that bad. Obviously, he's a youngster, but I don't think he's that bad. But, yeah, this team looks, I mean, there needs to be... I honestly, I think they need to take a break a little bit. I mean, maybe after Rotterdam, like, just hard scrim for a little bit, you know, because I feel like they haven't had really time to prac. I think the RMR showed they were very kind of out of their flow a little bit. But, I don't know, interesting for me. I think for me, if I was going to put a prediction on the table, I'd be very surprised if Ents don't win it, to be honest. I think Mouse is still really unproven. And, you know, it's basically Mouse Academy, let's be honest. They're decent. But can these youngsters keep up to level with the big boys? Big question. I think with how things are panning out, of course, now that, you know, we're not going to see Payne there, it's a question of who makes it through the EU one as well, because there are actually some decent teams. You mentioned Sprout.
Yeah, Tricked in it. They qualified to the Open Qualifier, and Fnatic Rising, winner of
Yes,
replay.
my goat Volt as well. Big shout out the UK boy. But I mean, this is the thing, right? You've got kind of you got some potentially cool teams who can make it through. I think, for me, if I have to make a prediction, I'd probably lean in favor of Sprout, just because I really like the teams. You know, I think they're really good. Fours are a good shout though as well, because they have actually been very scary recently. But regardless, I would be very surprised if it isn't kind of an Ents outsiders compete for that number one. I mean, I hate to say it, but Nixa are going to get absolutely rolled. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, the South African boys, they're going to get absolutely stomped.
I had the opportunity to do one of the South Africa qualifiers for ESL, and obviously one of my co-casters, Hayes, is a great guy. He's from South Africa. And he's like, this is like such a huge thing for us.
It is,
We've been starved of having a South Africa slot in any qualifier, in any event for ages, and finally we've got one. So at least they got one spot to show what they're made of. And it does have a couple of players that we'll know, like Sonic, for example, come out of retirement just to smurf the South African scene again. Bless him. But
he's back. He's back, boys.
That's at least good for them. But as you say, I think it's going to be very, very tough for them after seeing those invites. That's pretty stacked. Anyway, I think we're kind of pushed for time a little bit, so I think we're going to move on to, is it the Aleksib NIP news?
Yeah. I mean, that is quite a big one. But I think there's a couple of conversations on Twitter. I mean, I'll kind of run my thoughts kind of just immediately just on this like NIP Aleksib thing. I just don't like the move. Like, simple as, like, I just don't like it, because obviously, right, Plopsky was massively underperforming. There's no two ways about it. He was just not good on the roster. I think it's just the best way you can put it. I mean, I just don't like. I never liked it, basically. It wasn't a good team. Hey ho, what it is. The biggest problem for me for NIP, it was firepower. It wasn't calling. Calling wasn't the problem. It was the fact that they were just really lacking firepower, and people were begging for, you know, someone to come in and support the kind of Rez and Brolin in the fragging department. Like, Hampus calling wasn't an issue, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like, I'm not saying he's the best caller out there, but it wasn't like that was the issue causing a lot of problems for me anyway. And then they dropped Plopsky, it's fine, because Plopsky was underperforming and his firepower was brutal. So bring in an Orpa. Are you going to bring in Orpa? No, you bring in Aleksib, which Brolin left Fnatic because they weren't speaking Swedish. He wanted to leave an English-speaking team to join a Swedish-speaking team. And so he leaves Fnatic because he wants to speak Swedish. Joins NIP. You're like, okay, boom, easy stuff. 3 months later, they don't drop their IGL to now have 2 IGLs in this team, both of which aren't really great in the fragging department, in the grand scheme of things. They've now not got an AWPer and are making Res AWP, which then again just limits Res. I mean, like, for me,
That's
like,
a tough one.
I just hate it. Like, simple as, like, they just should have brought in. There's so many AWPers. Also, as well, I'm not being funny. If you're gonna bring an AWPer and you're looking for someone new, bro, Chauzy. Like, if you're gonna mold someone, Chauzy AWPing back on Ziggs as well. Exactly. Like, even if you're gonna take a gamble, like, if you're gambling, they've gambled to essentially bring in 2 IGLs, which for me is just moronic, because then, like, you know, Hampus isn't really, you know, he's not your go-to fragger by any means. If you're gonna make a gamble and you're gonna bring in someone, bring in an AWPer. If you're gonna gamble and you're gonna, you know, maybe go for someone young, you know, that's what you bring in, someone like Chauzy or Ziggs, or, you know. The Swedish team has got a lot of talent. Wolfie was in the lines. He was in low mix as a free agent. Like, I mean, I'm not being funny. There was so many options they could have brought in. Wolfie as well proved that he can compete at tier 1 level when he was with Ecstatic, when they were like farming FunSpark. I mean, I can't remember who they won in the final, but is it Complexity? They just absolutely just destroyed them. So there was, for me, there was just better options. I just don't like the fact that they've now got 2 IGLs. They've not gone AWPer, and
There's a couple of situations here that I'll sort of bring up. I think their statement when they released it, I'm going to sort of give sort of devil's advocate here.
Go on.
Their statement reeks of a bit of arrogance. In a
way, I
saying
agree.
That
yeah.
Res is like as good mechanically as Zyro and Simple or something they said in the statement, or something like that.
I'm not being funny.
I think he's I think he's an incredibly good rifler.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, he's incredible.
Yeah.
And I know he's good on the AWP too. But to make that comparison in the statement is a bit of a weird one. Hampus's numbers have been really good, but that's only when he was calling around himself. Whether he's now has to listen to Aleksib, whether his numbers drop and he can't do that anymore, is a big factor to Nip's firepower, which you brought up, Neo. And finally, I think that I can see where they're going from, what they're going with. They're thinking that Hampus can still, you know, pull up the numbers with Aleksib IGLing, but with those couple of factors, which I'll let Paladin jump in now, is for me why I think this won't work, even though I like Aleksib as a person.
But be honest here. Hampus, can he compete as a rifler?
Yes.
Do you actually think he can compete in terms of like he can be enough? That's a difference maker. Do you actually generally?
Yes.
So, but then what with the lack of AWPing? Does it limit Res?
Look. I think the main issue here is that, as you're saying, Trav, perfectly summated. Hampus calls the T sides around him. When he is not actually having an impact, this team doesn't look very good. And obviously, you have the rare situations where Brolin and Rez actually step up and Plopsy gets an odd entry and Hampus does his work there. But the T sides, they live and die by the success of Hampus and the amount of time that he has to put in into developing these T sides. And so at EPL, they didn't look very good. And I don't think they were very good because Hampus is bad at IGLing. I think they didn't prepare. Because I think this Aleksib B move was in the works. There's no way that this move just happened like that. This move was probably in the works. And so that in and of itself kind of makes me think, okay, the T side, saying the excuse that Hampus's T sides at EPL were bad is simply that. It's just an excuse. I don't think they were working at all for this whole thing to happen. I think Plopsky knew he was out the door, and he did pretty decently at this group because he didn't have any strings attached to him. So personally, I think that in and of itself is an issue. And as you're saying, if he's not calling around himself, Trav, like it's going to be a problem. I don't think that this guy is hardcore a stunning rifler. I think he's got to put himself in certain positions for him to actually perform. And if Aleksib doesn't understand that, this guy's got to weasel his way around the map and find these odd lurk timings and these cheeky little like cracking open of the bomb sites like on Mirage. If he's the guy that's doing like the like self boost into window, flank into B market. Like those kinds of stuff, he's got to call those around himself. And if that doesn't happen, and Aleksib isn't aware of that, then Hampus is now kind of like a sitting duck. There's no point of him on the team because he is told to actually call, right? So I think that is a major issue. And then again, I think Neil, you're also making a very good point. No opping on this team is a huge issue. Putting S-Attack on the rifle and making him Plotski's roles, great, fantastic. But you are now hampering one of your best rifling talents. Period, and you're making him AWP. You are literally repeating history on this roster. S-Attack's first AWP event was like, oh my god, it's so good, he's so good. He can rival Simple and Zywoo. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Immediately after that event, he shit the bed. He was completely useless, and he just wasn't actually impactful. And now we're doing the same thing with Rez. He had two actually pointless EPL games.
Yeah.
And he opted, right? Like, they were legitimately already knocked out of playoffs. And so it was literally for fun. The team that he's playing for fun, and he did well.
Yeah.
And now they want to make it a main role. To me, it just feels like they don't know what they're doing. I think that you should kind of kick your GM right now. Hire Kassad. This guy knows what he's doing.
He does that.
And kind of find the identity of this team. Like, there is no identity of this team. We've been spinning our wheels. We've been cycling academy players. We've brought on the Ronaldo of CS, and now we've benched him. And now we've got this. What is this? Also, keep in mind that now they're switching to English. We are literally risking it all to switch to English, and we have made it to the roster lock. This team are basically going to be able to prac for about 2 weeks, and they have to qualify for the major. They've not got an easy RMR, mind you. They've not got an easy bracket.
But the thing is, also, again, devil's advocate, if they do qualify for the RMR, that raises Aleksib's stock again.
Of course.
For this short space of time, he's had his stock plummet after G2, and probably fairly so, I would say.
I'd agree, yeah.
But if he can qualify for the RMR, or sorry, for the main event through the RMR with that short space of time, he's gonna have an IP, and that's a huge boon for him. But yeah, as you say, I think that a lot of this is just a bit of a mess, and NIP has been a mess as a team for a long time, ever since the device shit has happened.
Yeah,
but like, the potential for this team is so crazy. Like, I dog on NIP in like literally every talk show that I'm ever on. But that's not because but that's not because I hate them as like a whole team. I think one of the reason why I hate them so much is because the core of this team can do so much more in CS. I think Hampus, Rez, and Brolin should be what Sweden should be looking up to for years to come. This team should be contending for tournaments, yet they can't. Why can't they? They still don't understand that. Look, they've got to have one more piece of the puzzle with Plopsky out the door, and they've also got to have a consistent AWP player. Tag into a rifling role for Plopsky's roles, and then a competent AWP player. You're cooking with gas. There's no reason why that team can't actually contend. So I think that is my main issue. That they have such a fearsome core, but nobody's actually scared of them. Nobody is like, oh my god, yeah, we should really be afraid of NIP, guys. Like, they're going to blow us out of the water.
No one's hard counter-striking NIP right now, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think the thing you mentioned about it is the thing for me that why I really, really dislike this roster move, because this just massively reminds me of Fnatic when they made all their changes, and the big thing you mentioned is when they lost their identity, because who is this NIP roster now? I mean, it just, like, for me, I think like most people, I just think this team is going to stagnate massively. I just can't see it just doing what they expect it to. Like, I think it's a classic case of it's you know, all bark and no bite. Like, I just feel like, you know, they're chatting up a storm on Twitter, and, you know, they're just chatting so much shit on Twitter, all of them. I just can't see a world in which this team becomes like, you know, like consistent, you know, top 6, 5, whatever in the world, you know, back to the old god of an IP being one of the best like teams ever. I just don't see it, like, just how it is. And you mentioned that
that's not how CS works anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And
you don't get one team that can dominate like that. From like the top 2.
Apart from exactly.
That's 2 teams.
So I just don't see a world in which like NIP ever enter that conversation. Like, I mean, even when you look towards kind of like, you know, teams like Vitality, I think a lot of people kind of dogged on their changes, but they've stayed in that upper echelon conversation for a while now. But I don't see NIP replicating it with this change. The changes that Vitality made, while it started slow, they actually look okay in the grand scheme of things. They're still fine.
But they had a plan, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That team had a plan. Yeah. When that French roster actually like disintegrated, they had Vitality, the organization, already decided, look, we want an international roster. This is what we want to do going forward. And so all of these moves happening make sense on paper, right? Like, they actually, there is a logical reasoning to it. Now, obviously there are caveats to said moves here and there, but there always are going to be. And I think that they still understand that those issues are going to be there, and they've had proper protocols in place. The communication being an issue, they try to bond outside of the game. They try to make sure that the team cohesion was always on point, and there's always things on the horizon for that Vitality squad to make it work. there's no such thing in NIP. They've been touting the system for so long,
Oh
and I
my
don't know
God,
what
yeah.
that system is.
No one knows. They
Yeah,
don't even know what the
I
system
completely
is.
agree.
They don't even know themselves. Like, it seems
I
because
think-
it's just a mess.
What I will say with NIP is that I don't understand the move, and I agree with both of you for everything that both of you just said.
Yeah.
But I also understand it in the sense of what's the hurt, apart from missing the major, of course, which obviously is a big deal. But
Yeah.
long term, what's the hurt in taking a risk when the gap between tier 1.5, when you've got, what was it, Liquid 3, Astralis 4,
Yeah,
and then FaZe
yeah.
and Navi, that gap is huge.
It is,
in
yeah.
terms of skill and current level. And I don't see why NAP probably just thought to themselves, okay, this is a gamble, but you never know. It could be something that gives teams a different look at us, and maybe we can have some success. Because I understand gambling when you're at that level of not winning and you want to try and do something crazy. You know, I do get it, but at the same time, I agree with both of you.
We'll have to wait and see. We'll move swiftly on because we could probably sit here for hours just cooking NIP. I mean, I think
Go fast.
I think most people aren't really. They're not really. But we can move on to we can talk about Pro League, what we've seen so far. At the time of recording, we have concluded 2 groups. The Group C starts tomorrow, if I'm right in saying, on the 14th. Yeah. So I mean, I'm really excited about what Group C is, but we'll talk about what we've seen so far. Group A, Group B. So Group A, Vitality. I mean, what a performance from them. They were scary. I mean, I think for me, it seems like kind of the first in a long time where Vitality being like no one really seemed to scrape the surface too much against them. They looked really solid the whole way through. Group B, same scenario. G2. I mean, I really didn't think they take down FaZe, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised.
Believer.
Yeah. Giga Chad Hooksy. I mean, that's the big meme, innit? Like, I know Paladin loves that one. He's a big fan.
Oh, I love it. No,
I was ahead of the curve. I said, give Hooksy a second or two.
I've got this
and
in
they'll
writing.
do well.
I actually said this when Copenhagen Flames disbanded. I've got it in writing somewhere. I'll dig it out and I'll put it on Twitter somewhere. I said to one of my mates at home, Hooksy, whatever team, tier 1 team picks up Hooksy, because he will get picked up by a tier 1 team. Literally on the day this disbanded, my mate was saying like Hooksy's shit, and I was like, you're wrong. Like, you're incorrect. He's very good. Like, you don't know what you're talking about, because he doesn't. I was like, no, like, trust me. When he gets to a tier 1 team and he actually gets to play with, you know, like, firepower, he'll be fine. And he is. So I go and credit it. But yeah, Vitality, G2, top of the group. Fnatic looked pretty good into Group A. And of course, Na'Vi, they squeaked by a little bit, more than I thought they would.
Yeah, I think that's probably to be expected, I think, because Navi, I feel like, in a bit of a weird state right now where they can't reach the heights of, like, the Cologne final again, because that was such a ridiculous game. And now they're sort of... I think it's the same can be said for FaZe, even though they performed better.
Yeah.
It's like both these two teams are sort of doing enough to get through, but not necessarily having to dig deep within themselves to find that level again. It's a bit of an interesting one. I think Spirit were okay, and probably we feel a little bit hard done by that they didn't make it through in the end after all that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think Vitality is super interesting because I think objectively, I know Maui has talked about it quite a number of times, but he's mentioning that, like, the structure and communication of Vitality isn't changed. Like, it's not better.
No.
It's not like it's not worse either. It's just kind of there. But Spinks is just so good and such an upgrade over Masuta that they can skate on by through so many of these situations, and they can go toe to toe with the Na'Vi. Now, if your worst players are Dupree and Magisk, you can win games.
You're right.
You can. So I think Vitality was super awesome. I think they already looked really good at the Blast groups. It's a shame that they actually did win the rematch. Rematches, I'm gonna blame that on the format personally. I think that rematches always favor the team that lost in the first go around because they have an idea of how they lost.
Sort that Frag as well.
Exactly. And Frag as well. And so I think that Vitality is, in my opinion, the better team of the two. Obviously, now jury's still out because, look, I think that the big thing about G2 in my eyes is that if the core of Nico, I think I mentioned this on NA as well, that I don't think that Hooksy's individual performances are good. I think that's very easy to say. But if he's able to have at least a little bit of impact here or there, a couple rounds, and we saw that in the groups where we had just like 2 or 3 rounds where we're in like those 12-12, 13-13 situations where we're on that huge comeback and Hooksy puts up a double. It's enough for the rest of this core to just perform. Or you have a JKS 1.1 game. Like it's not. I'm not expecting much out of these players, but you automatically see the core developing just instrumental in all of their performances. Nico and Hunter look revitalized.
They do.
Monesi especially. I know everybody's been tossing around the statistics. This guy's having an unreal EPL. Although he had a quiet couple of games to start off. In the games that it counted against FaZe, he looked absolutely unstoppable. And I have to say, like, this team, the T sides looked so discombobulated previously, but against FaZe, they looked like the better team. It's not like a
I didn't think they would
it was
as
a
well.
fluke. It wasn't a fluke. I don't think that game was a fluke by any means. They genuinely looked like the better team.
Yeah,
and that in and of itself is super exciting for just the potential that this G2 roster has. That now they've locked in quarterfinals. Who knows, right? Now you got to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
They destroyed Outsiders as well.
Oh, they did.
Especially on Inferno, and that's not a map you ever see Outsiders destroyed on ever.
They always look
Ever,
comfortable.
yeah.
They always
their
look
round
comfortable.
difference.
Yeah.
Their round difference is like, what is it? Let me look. 1, 2.
It's plus 73. That's ridiculous.
That's 33 more than Vitality, who also went 5-0.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Outsiders have looked pretty decent. We thought that Big were going to make it. I think a lot of people thought Big were going to make it over Outsiders.
Yeah.
Outsiders look okay.
Yeah,
It surprised a lot of us, I think, to make it through. But yeah, I think that's tells the tale of how the time can really help G2.
For me, that's scary. Is that if this is now, I'm just hoping this isn't a honeymoon phase for G2. Basically, you know, we see that all the time. We see, you know, new changes come through. They find this form and then they go back to everyone like realizes how to, you know, to drop them off and then whatever. I hope this is like now like the new norm, because this is how G2 should be. I think it's what they've been looking for with an international roster for a long time. If this is the form as well that they bring into, like, you know, let's say the major, for example, we can actually finally see G2 cause problems, because, you know, if you're looking towards the major, you know, like in previous iterations, FaZe was so dominant at Antwerp for, like, you know, everyone going into it. I think like the jury was between Na'Vi and FaZe, but I think most people kind of lent in favor of FaZe. It was like it felt pretty easy to read. Stockholm, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was like the easiest read ever. I mean, I don't personally bet. I don't feel like you're not made mentor as a caster, but if I did, I mean, I would have comfortably, you know, without losing a wink of sleep, but you know, money on Na'Vi to win that one. It just seemed like a shoe-in from the get-go. But G2 now actually sort of, for me, enter that conversation. If this is the team that we're seeing go through, where, I mean, like, they've got an RD of 73. I mean, they didn't drop a map. Being like they played against the #1 best team in the world. I mean, like, that is sick. So I'm really looking forward to what we see going forward from them. And, of course, we've got Group C and Group D coming up. We've got Group C tomorrow and then Group D, like, next week. Interesting times. Very interesting times. I think we've kind of got the big hitters out the way now. Group D, for me, it for me just seems like a shoe-in.
Just looks fun.
Yeah, it looks fun.
Teams. It's the blue group.
The blue teams,
yeah. I mean, if Cloud9 don't win that, I'd be so surprised. I mean, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like, they just are the better team. I'd probably then say, I'd even go maybe Liquid Furia. I'm really not impressed with Movistar recently. So
Liquid for me.
Yeah. I think it was Liquid. Well, Liquid to win it. Do you mean?
No,
I think Liquid will
to come second.
Yeah, Liquid to come second. I think Liquid second, Furia 3. That's what I'm gonna go with.
I will go Liquid 1, C9 2, and Furia 3 simply because I think
Copium.
I don't think.
Yeah,
I think that's good.
I don't think C9's had enough reps down in like in tier 1 yet, just because they're not a partner team.
Sure.
At the same time, I think that Liquid also looks more cohesive. That I think they'll just win that head-to-head between C9 and Liquid. I think they'll win that game, and it'll be the only thing that separates them. I think it'll only be the head-to-head.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, I think they are comfortably 1 and 2.
Obviously, yeah, I'd agree.
But then it's kind of up for grabs. I'd be surprised if it isn't Furia. Like, I think if it isn't Furia, it's an upset. Just inherently, like, obviously we haven't seen Movistar on LAN, but I know
impressed.
all three of us here are just not looking forward to them in general. Maybe a Mopaz masterclass again, but I don't think I have no.
An EG at EG and Eternal Fire are the outsiders, so it's really
exactly.
Yeah.
To be fair though, what is really interesting to me is I saw a lot of people having this conversation. I actually saw a really good clapback by Sponge about it. But Group C, I think, is actually really interesting.
Oh, so exciting!
I think Group C, arguably for me, just seems like the most exciting in terms of the fact that it's like it's the hardest to read in my opinion. I mean, it just seems all over the place. Like, even if I had to look at who's going to finish #1, like, I even struggle with that because, you know, there's arguments to be made for, like, ENCE, Heroic, or Astralis, to be perfectly honest.
any of those teams can capitulate.
If you want
mind you.
hopium as well, Mouse could have some masterclass with the youngsters. He are slept on. We've seen them at conference. We've seen them, in and around the tier 2 scene. Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I think Complexity seem maybe a little bit out of the depth. I really can't see a world in which Complexity make it through. I know that maybe like NA
No,
but
it makes me sad, but it is the truth.
I think I'm just being realistic. I can't
the
see a world
firepower
which
across the board. It's just too hard to match up
Exactly,
against.
exactly.
I think at the end of the day.
But you two, give me your top 3, not in any order. Just give me your top 3 of Group C, because I think this is even this is hard. Trav, it's Kickstarters. I mean, this one's tough.
I don't believe in heroic. I think Astralis will show up. Ents, Astralis, Mouse.
Okay, Paladin, what you got?
I think Ents feels like I think they've got their shit together. I think the core is too good for them not to get through.
Yeah.
I think I'll get on the heroic copium and say that like they're group stage warriors and they'll just get through.
Yeah.
I don't know how they'll fare in the playoffs, but I think that they'll make it just because I think that they can beat a Mouse Complexity in a heat. But I see them losing to like an Astralis and an Ents. But that third spot, man, I really don't know who that goes to because I can't trust Astralis to win anything at this point. Like I genuinely I can see them win anything, but I can see them lose anything as well. So you know what? Like I'll just say, look, let's have that heat into the playoffs.
That's what I'm
going
with.
See them play. Let's see them like play G2. Like I just want to see that happen.
That's what I'm going with. I'm going Ents, heroic, heat. They're my 3. I'm going to go for the wild just because I think it's for someone to say to my face, Charlotte's making it through easy. You're a moron. Like, it's just, they're not. Like, no one's making it through this group easy. Let's be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But for you
there is no clear-cut one.
For you to, with full confidence, be like, Charlotte's are definitely making it through. Like, there's no logic behind that. There's just there isn't any logic behind that statement. I actually can't wait for group. And to be honest, I think at times Pro League can get a little bit long. It's a 5-week tournament. So I know some people aren't a huge fan of it. It can be very, very long. And I myself, I'm not going to sit here and lie to people's faces and say I watch every game, because I don't. I do have other stuff I need to be doing. But I actually will. I actually think I'm probably going to watch more or less every game in Group C for definite, and even Group D as well, because I think Group D is just a wild card because we could see a random team make it through, and Group C is like it's anyone's game. Probably aside from Complexity, to be perfectly honest. So I'm really excited about that one. To be perfectly honest, I'm really excited.
Just to finally touch on it,
go on.
Just a very small point before we end off this segment is that I think there's been some talk about it with FTW in Group B. Obviously, they bombed out, probably to be expected.
My
but
goats.
That's when
My goats.
when they come around, when the next conference comes around, it's going to be closer to Pro League that was announced, right?
Yes.
The next conference is closer to Pro League, so hopefully we won't have a situation where FTW a team lose 2 of their best players. So
it's so unfortunate.
That won't happen again.
Yeah, I mean they lost Story and Jerks, right? They're the two
they were the guys that made them qualify to conference, like objectively. And you just lose them. You're like, what the hell are you supposed to do? Like,
I feel so bad for them. Like, I actually love the org as well. I speak to the CEO every now and again. He's like the nicest dude. Like probably one of the nicest I've ever met in esports. And like he's like his sole purpose and care is like actually about the players. Like I remember he was like talking to me about like franchising and how it can be quite bad because like he loves stories and he loves stories about like underdogs making it through, and he was like all the stuff about them making it being the first ever team to Pro League from Portugal. I mean like that kind of like that is like heartwarming in that sense. But it's just brutal that they lose their 2 best players. I mean like and like
by having it closer next time should stop this sort of thing from happening.
Yeah.
Realistically, if Saw come calling, the most well-known,
and they've got the most money as well.
They're gonna have
money
to say
they've got.
yes every single day of the week.
They can afford any buyout from any of the Portuguese teams. Like I was reading a thing about the financials that Saw have got, and they've got money to burn. So they're big chilling, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, you're spot on, right? They are the prestige org coming out of. Probably one of the most prestige orgs coming out of the entire region, like the Iberian region, to be perfectly honest. They're up there with the Movies. So yeah, if they come knocking, there's nothing really you can do, to be perfectly honest. But we can swiftly move on to our penultimate segment, which is talking about big news. We were speaking about majors earlier, the Rio major, but of course we've got the announcement that Blast is getting their first ever major in the mighty Paris, which is It's pretty exciting. I'm actually, to be honest, I'm pleasantly like looking forward to a Blast major. I think, you know, it's to be honest, it's about damn time they got a majors.
It's the one thing when it comes to majors that people have been asking for ages. I just can't wait to see what they do with it. Blast have had their own formats that they've used for their tournaments for however long, and nothing anywhere near like this. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see what they do with it. I'm considering going because obviously it's a Eurostar travel.
Same here.
Plane that I would need to do.
Take the train, so easy.
The only thing that obviously, which everyone will talk about, is the fact that in the arena will probably be French commentary.
Well, this is the thing. I've heard otherwise.
It's not confirmed yet. Yeah. It's not confirmed yet. It's 50-50, I think, as to whether it's like French law sort of dictates it should be, but also it might not be.
Lubtan law, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, but so this is the only caveat. So people keep mentioning this law, the Lubtan law, whatever it's called, the Luban law or whatever. And that is a law. Like when you do events in Paris, you have to speak French. Like it's just how it works because it's just like their ruling. However, apparently, and I don't have confirmation on this. This is what I've just been told by people who have done a lot more research on this than me. So apparently, the way it works though, there is like not a grey area. It's like the way that like they're more than happy for it to be done. Is that like so like the stage hosting will be in in French, but the casting and the desk, everything's in English, but the stage host will speak to the crowd in French and be like, you know, welcome, bienvenue, FaZe, and then fucking FaZe walk out, right? And that's it. Like, so I mean, to be perfectly honest, like if that's the case, I don't mind. I mean, I speak a fairly decent amount of French anyway, so like it won't really faze me, to be perfectly honest. Like even if it was in French casting,
Neo, then. Good for Neo. Then who cares about everyone else?
Then screw everybody else. I'm big chilling. But no, that's what I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be hosted in French. Like so, rather than kind of James Banks, for example, you know, hosting it, I reckon they'll have a French person who speak to the crowd in French. And the casting will be English. Because to be perfectly honest, if the casting's not in English, I feel like that will turn a lot of people away. Let's be realistic here. I mean, like, no one from the UK is going to go across because, you know, the majority of people in the UK, I mean, I'd probably say like 5% of the UK speak French, if that, to be perfectly honest. And then, you know, all the other countries. French isn't one of those languages that is like super widely spoken outside of France, in Europe specifically, where like, you know, English is like the common denominator of languages. So, that's what I've been told. Like, this is not confirmed by anybody. This is just like, kind of, obviously, it's all speculation, to be perfectly honest. But I'm excited to see. Also, they've upped the prize pool as well, which is quite nice. By like 250 grand on top. So
I think they pulled it from like the other like RMR money or something. Like they had like leftover money from previous cycles, and I think they're putting it on here. So I don't know if it's gonna be like a thing moving forward.
Yeah.
Over 250k.
Yeah, I know, right?
250 line about. Yeah. Where's mine?
But I'm super excited for this major. I think it's got the makings to be the best major ever.
I massively agree.
And you think about the production, you think about the sound. I think Maui brought this up. Sound design in France is very, very good.
It is, yeah.
Having that in Paris, that'd be fantastic. So you have no issues with deaf PGL audio engineers. You don't have that going on. You don't have like you also don't have to deal with Blast's own shortcomings of their terrible format. Like they've got to go through with the Buchholz system and the Swiss system, and then you'll have the clean ass bracket to boot at the end. So that also isn't going to be an issue. So literally all the kind of side issues that this tournament could have won't happen, that this organization might have had previously. And then on top of that, you have Vitality slowly gaining momentum. And who knows, if they are actually in form, having Vitality on stage, dude, with Apex and Zygo on stage.
But also with the Hornets as well. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
I'm super excited.
I'd love that, dude. That'd be so exciting.
Because it's the same conversation and caveat we were talking about with, you know, like some Imperial and Pain playing in Rio. You know, you have the home kind of advantage, and that is going to be awesome. Even you can even make the same argument for G2 just because the organization's French, right? So, you know, they have I don't know, if people, you know, who at home have watched the majors and seen the crowd, there's always that massive G2 turnout, always at the front. Was that you know, all that huge group. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think for me as well, like, I normally really don't like when changes come about and then, you know, the CEO or the GM or whatever is like, this is gonna be the best thing ever, you know, like for example, like we saw NIP's one saying like this change is gonna be, you know, whatever. I normally hate that because I think I always look back to the Colossus of C9 where they were just talking up this big game all the time, And it was the easiest counter argument for when it didn't work. It was like, well, you shot yourself in the foot. You put the pressure on them. Da, da, da. But the thing is, the Blast, they're not new to this. Like, look at like Lisbon looked like one of the best events I think I've ever seen. I mean, like I think OJ Borg with like the crowd and stuff like that. Like, oh man, like Blast know how to run a studio, an arena gig. I can't see any problems. You know, you see if I got the PGL Def audio engineer.
Yeah.
Like, I can't see any problems. Like Blast, they know how to run a gig. They seem pretty good. So,
I will say that I think CS:GO, when it comes to majors, is now in a very, very good spot. If ESL, after all the announcements that we've seen just come in today, can make Rio run smoothly and not have any issues, like we all know that Brazil unfortunately has got like crime rate and stuff like that, which is very rough. Hopefully that's all going to be fine and nothing untoward happens. And then the major after is a brand new TO who has been famed for having the best production in Counter-Strike. The CS:GO is in a fantastic spot, and I think that's just super exciting.
And Antwerp and Stockholm broke viewership numbers, right?
They
and they were they're objectively worse tournaments. In the grand scheme of things. And to have these now into the back-to-back, like locked and loaded in the chamber, man alive, dude. CS is looking fantastic right now.
Do you know what for me is the biggest thing about all of this? It's not that Blast are in charge. It's not that it's a new TO. It's not that there's more money on the line. The biggest and the most important thing for me is that this has direct support from the president of France. Emmanuel Macron has come out and he's backing. Like, you don't get that anywhere else. I mean, like, for example, in the UK, esports is just shunned upon, to be perfectly honest. In NA, you look towards esports and people still think it's like, you know, basically fat virgins in their mum's basement playing COD, screaming at each other with Mountain Dew and Doritos. So like, this is like, for the first time, what seems like, I mean, I don't know, ever, maybe. I don't know what Brazil and their government's like in the same sense, but like Macron has filmed the video personally talking about this, and also he talked about Trackmania as well, like how they're gonna have their worlds there. But just to have the support from the highest of the highest in terms of control in the country, I mean, that is like, that's huge for me. And like, that's what I love most about this, because it means like this is not only about, you know, Paris getting a major and or France getting a major and, you know, Blast getting their first one. This is about like reputation essentially for Macron, because he's put his neck on the line here, which means that it has to go well. It will have hefty investment. It will run and be as good as anything. In the same sense, it's the same kind of you know, scenario as like, you know, countries holding a World Cup, for example, you know, a football World Cup or whatever, because you know, it's like it's a national pride sort of thing about making it run smoothly and making it run well. So that's the thing that excites me the most, is that Macron is like fully involved. He wants to make esports this big thing. And I know people will be making arguments like, oh, he's only doing this so he can like get the next election or whatever. I don't care. He's still putting his neck on the line and like actually supporting this to be what Blast has said is going to be the best major ever. But I actually agree that it really has the potential to be.
You mentioned UK, but I don't think, I think the Face It Majors games didn't do the UK justice when the major came to London. I think I need another UK event coming in soon.
It won't happen.
Someone from Face It, ESL, please one day. Let's bring it back. For the Queen.
For the Queen. She's gone, lads. For the Queen. Call it the Queen Liz Face It Major or whatever. Let's get it back. But it's really exciting. I agree with you. That's the thing that I'm most excited about. It should be sick. Really looking forward to it. If Blast Lisbon's anything to go off by, which is essentially a much smaller event, you just can't not be excited. I mean, like, look at what we've got now. I mean, like, if you're a fan of CSGO, also as well, if you're new to CSGO, you lucky fucker, because you're coming in when you've got ESL Rio, which is like, just like, that's going to be just bonkers. I mean, you talk about, you know, breaking viewership, and you follow that up with Blast. I mean, so lucky. And then even as well, if you want to, you know, Perfect World was going to be the other one. They know how to run an event too. So if that's like, you know, potentially the one afterwards, I mean, we're in for a really good period. People keep talking about the CSGO bubble. Get in the bin, mate. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's exciting times. Paladin, know what you're going to see in France?
Oh man, dude, I was thinking of the damn prices and I was like, oh my god.
How much is the plane ticket again? Like $3,000 or something?
1,500 to $2.5 grand.
Is that each way or return?
Oh, round trip.
Even still though.
No, I mean,
that's ridiculous.
Oh man, I mean, it would be like an opportunity of a lifetime.
Make it a massive holiday, like with everyone, like family, maybe even your
partner. Come on the missus, and be like, oh, so you're taking on a romantic trip to Paris, and you just bring it
go.
Exactly. I've got to take you to this
2 million
beautiful
IQ.
spot.
Oh.
I've got to take you to this beautiful spot. It's this arena. There's not going to be anybody there.
Yeah. It's like, I've got this really good idea. We're gonna go on like, I don't know how you've been going out for like in 3-4 years. We're gonna go on like an early anniversary for to Paris. I've already booked some really. I've got tickets to some cool places. Don't you worry. You just turn up for like a semi-final of the major. She's like, what is this? Like, what is going on? She thought you were getting Eiffel Tower tickets. But no, it's sick. It's sick. I think that we can swiftly move on. Exciting times is the best way to put it. Trav, you've got a little segment for us.
I do.
Do you want to bring us in? Go on.
I'm going to lead you in by asking you the question that is on the lips of many people who play Counter-Strike. Are you a spacebar jumper or a mouse wheel jumper?
Spacebar. All the way.
Mouse wheel.
Mouse wheel. Okay, so we do have some
Yeah.
differentials here. Because you brought this up to me, Neo, earlier as well, that you saw Imperial basically lose a map due to Cello mouse wheel jumping.
Yeah.
And I'd actually made a thread dating back to a Mad Lions team
There we
with
go.
Roy, Hunden, Acor, Bubsky, and Shush on it.
Oh.
2020, January. And you can watch the clip now.
It's
the
really
reaction
good.
of Bubsky.
Bubsky's reaction is brilliant.
Between two rotations.
Give it a play.
Yeah, wait, I'll
Top rope. Bubsky's looking to take his place. Build these M4s. Getting dropped. Ah, it's a mouse wheel.
It's good. It's good. He just like, you
And
know,
I decided
headphones off.
After that, I decided after that every time I saw something go wrong and almost like a round losing play thanks to a mouse wheel jump,
Yeah.
I'd document it. So I'd made a thread. There's one from Blast Phase versus Nip in 2020,
Yeah.
and there's a February one which is MIBR versus Ents and an old DreamHack. Then we've got Phase versus Vitality, and I was just saying I'm going to keep adding to this.
Oh,
and
and
then
they
the
have
last one is Esatag doing it like twice against Vitality and still getting a kill from it. You might as well play the last one because
I'll get the last one up. There we go.
Now 1 versus 2 with the Deagle.
I can't believe he like gets away with it as well. Like I mean, Apex, what is going on? I can't believe he gets away with it. To be perfectly honest, he's
it's pretty
extremely
crazy.
fortunate.
So it's like I understand that it's probably 5% better than Spacebar.
Yeah.
But if you're going to lose a round solely by accidentally mouse wheel jumping, then I just don't see
The benefit,
how, like,
right?
It's one of the biggest controls are pretty standard in Counter-Strike, apart from Fasher and Mezzi, for example. but like this one is
it's the biggest debate, right? Isn't it?
That divides the community. And I feel like I've always used Spacebar because I've jumped with Spacebar in every single game I've ever played in my life.
Same here.
So mouse wheel just doesn't feel natural to me whatsoever at any point. I don't know.
Liaz's
Paladin,
one
give
as
me your
well
thoughts.
was just to add in, like Liaz's one.
Yes.
It's just so bad. Like at
played it,
bench,
did you?
yeah. It's just like you really
It's
gotta
so
feel
bad.
bad. Gotta feel bad for him. Like he has the potential to kind of win the round there and like, drop the bomb and everything. He jumped.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right,
it's good.
so
it's good.
Paladin, give me your reasoning behind it.
So
as a mouse wheel jumper.
I used to play everything spacebar, and I think the reason why I stopped using spacebar was because I didn't like the scroll being used for like cycling through weapons.
Okay.
And I liked actually clicking the buttons 1, 2, 3, and then I had the nade binds, like for my nades or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think like clicking on 4 and then like scrolling through your nades felt a little like weird. Obviously you can like
hated
do
that.
spacebar and then you can also do like utility as well. But I really liked that I could scroll wheel, jump, and then just completely like ignore that part of the game, like as far as the keyboard is concerned. But yeah, I think I've also had a fair share of like mess ups where I would I would just jump when I shouldn't be. But I mean, I can bunny hop pretty well. So
That's the
I'll just
argument,
take
though,
that
isn't
as
it?
a yeah.
Like everybody who's like when I speak to people, like I'm just saying like okay, like so like why is it so important to you to have you know scroll wheel over spacebar? And I was like, oh, but I do B hop and KZ. I was like, okay, there we go. But like you know, in a competitive side, like I don't see the innate like you know reasoning because it's like. It just errors, and you mentioned it. You kind of when you brought in the intro, like so for Imperial, I can't remember who it was against. I mean, bear in mind, give me a break, guys. It was like 6 a.m. in the morning or whatever it was. But in Melbourne, it was Cello, and he did it twice in the same game, and they actually lost the map because of it. He did it on match point in a clutch, and they lost the map, and it was like. I remember, I don't think I was even on the desk for it, but I was watching it in the green room, just being like, oh my god. And like, we were like shouting in the green room, like, change it, like, unbind it, please. Like, because like, it costs on the map, like, on 2 occasions. And I just think for me, it's the risk reward is anything. If you're full competitive, but then of course if you do other things, like I know like a lot of players, like they warm up with like, you know, KZ and Surf and kind of get their mental.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Like I have literally no qualms against that at all. I just think in a comp side, the errors are kind of they outweigh the pros maybe.
Yeah. I'll say 2 things from this. One, I've never used scroll wheel to change my nades because I actually have a mouse. Can I even lift it to the camera? I think can I use my camera like this?
Go on.
Can you see it? There we go.
Okay.
So my mouse has got loads of buttons. So
Nice.
the front 2 here are used for smoke and flash. The back one here is to use molly at the very back of the mouse.
The best mouse.
There you go. And then the others are like, I have a weird one where I use like the mouse 5 to change my pistol, which is the main weird one. But, like I got every single grenade on my mouse.
That's actually
it's
really
like,
cool. Yeah.
So that works for me and always has. And finally, Neil, I'll just actually ask you a quick question about that.
Go on.
In the green room, when you were in the green room for Melbourne,
Yeah.
would you be the only guy there? You and Mo were the only 2 there, would it be? When
No,
you were
Alan
on the desk?
Oh yeah. When we went on the desk, it was just me and Mo. Yeah. Big shout out
Yeah,
Mo as well.
okay.
People don't know Mo. Mo's the talent manager for
and editor for Launders. That
Got
guy's
Launders
goated,
editor,
man.
He's editor.
goated.
He does someone else as well. I can't remember. He does someone else.
Vu,
But,
Vu.
Vu, that's it. Vu Launders,
Yeah.
editor. He works with Dust to DK as their admin as well. Talent manager for ESL. All around top guy Mo. So
He's a stud.
he's
out.
kind of like the non-tier 1 talent manager, and for any gigs that are in Stockholm. And a lot of ESL stuff are in Stockholm because obviously they got the DreamHack studios there. So top guy. But yeah, it was just me and Mo. But he's like the nicest.
Not as
dude
many
ever.
people as
Conference.
Because it's
Yeah.
like Valencia was nice to actually have multiple people to talk to. So I think it'd be a bit, a bit of a shame for you not to have. I mean, obviously it makes complete sense. Not to
It
have
was
the conference
quiet.
there, but
Yeah.
it was
Yeah, when you
quiet,
don't have the
yeah.
casting duo that's not casting,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it feels empty. I'm
Exactly.
sure.
I mean,
yeah.
it was quiet. Like that's the
Yeah.
best way to put it. Like it was good, but also at the same time because it was like 5-6 a.m. You're kind of conserving your energy a little bit.
Right,
So,
yeah.
Like it was
You got a limited pool.
Yeah. I mean, you're running on gas a little bit, so you're trying to preserve it for the desk. But it was.
Fair enough.
But
Little tangent there. Sorry.
just
wanted to ask you about that one.
but you kind of talk about your mouse binds. I know this one triggers my mates all the time. But I use scroll wheel to scroll through weapons. I don't use 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
Gross.
and nades as well. And nades.
Gross.
And I use it for nades. I scroll through everything. but
Yeah, that's horrible. That's
I am
horrible.
like so efficient at it. Like I never make errors with it. But like you can just
No,
see.
I know.
You
Sure.
I have a friend
Yeah,
who's level
sure.
10 who uses mouse.
Yeah.
Mouse wheel still.
You
so-
like
Oh, horrendous.
like so especially like I'll shout out my mate C60, very good UK player, and I play with him like pretty much on a daily basis. And if he's specking me and he sees me, like it's obvious when you scroll because obviously you just go through them, and he just be like. "Ugh." but no, I'm pretty efficient at it. But yeah, I mean, like I know everyone has weird things, but I think for me as well, is because I never ever wanted to be competitive in CS:GO. I never wanted to be a pro. So like, I just couldn't be bothered, to be perfectly honest. I was it's just kind of like laziness. I played for fun and it elevated.
Do you not like to argue for no reason?
Huh?
Is it not fun for you?
What?
Just arguing about nothing?
What do you
Things
mean?
that are essentially pointless. I mean, this whole mouse jump and scroll scroll wheel and spacebar argument is basically
That's why-
pointless because
that's
most
why
of
I
us
like to bring it up.
aren't
Yeah.
pros. Like it's just
little-
fun to argue, Neo.
Yeah, it is.
My little fun segment is perfect for this sort of thing. That's why I like to add it at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no. Like I mean, I'm not even ever gonna argue for people should use scroll wheel for everything because like that is an absolute losing battle. But that is my like weird thing. Also, the other reason why I use scroll wheel for everything is because my keyboard, apart from like WASD and like obviously like 1, 2, 3, 4, like they're there. I don't use them. They are still binded. But like the rest of my keyboard is just key binds. Like it's all. So my caps lock is like I switch left and right hand and I do it all the time. It's like I'm always tapping it. Like it's like ADHD basically. I'm always like switching left and right hand. So you see,
Knife switching.
yeah. But so I don't have. So I unbinded Q, which is like it's like switch back to your previous weapon to like clear decals. So I like that quite a lot. But
Mine's on X clear decals.
so for me, so X is it just says next round. So when I kill someone, I hit X straight away. It's just like straight. Like my whole keyboard is just like just keybinds. Like don't talking please, or like next round, or like you know that one.
The
That's,
only one
you know,
I
that Claire's chat. That's a really good one. Like if anyone says anything, clear chat straight away.
The only text one I think I have is good game, but like we're better than you or something.
You know, it's got to be said. It's got to be said sometimes. But yeah, like so, like the majority of my keyboard is taken up with like egregious.
Good game, but you were no threat though.
That's pretty good actually. I might have to nab that one. Or like another one is like if I like 1D someone, I always just say bonk. It's just like those small things, but like you know, like while I may not be winning in terms of the aim, I win on them in the mental game. That's my caveat. So yeah, that's what I lean into.
If it's okay, I want to bring us into the final bit that we're going to mention as well, of what we're looking forward to in the next couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to something very much. Something I tweeted the other day, which got a lot more traction than I ever expected it to. Somehow, don't ask me how. Maybe the Twitter algorithm loves me or something. Algorithm loves me.
Yeah.
Kingwin Legends. It's a 50 grand tournament, and we've got captains putting together some teams: Pasha, Michaelele, Edward, Kenny, Neo, and Heaton. And before, unfortunately, Guardian had to pull out of Neo's team. It was Guardian, Forest, Neo, Olaf, and Freiburg.
Sick.
And if you put together that team in 2014, and even now, you've got if you still had Guardian in it, it's Olaf and Guardian, the two like who have both had eras at the same time almost. Olaf had his era, and Guardian was trying his best to stop him.
Yeah.
You have Freiburg, who was one of the best entries in the world in 2014. You have Neo, who's the 1.6 GOAT and had incredible performances in CSGO. And you've got Forest, who's the 1.6 GOAT and CSGO GOAT for longevity reasons.
That's it.
So it's the most insane team ever. And I mean, if we look at the other rosters, we've got Pasha, Snacks, Bialy playing with Mihu and Shane. Edward's playing with Bondik and some of the younger Ukrainians like Woro2K and Demq.
Yeah.
Heaton's playing with Dennis. Makalele's playing with Devilwalk, and Kenny's playing with Smiths, NATO Sapphics, and Smooya. So the thing I'm excited about is I'm going to be doing one day of this event on Thursday.
So do you know who you're covering yet? Do you have an idea?
I think on Thursday I'll be doing Michaelele's team versus Edwards, then Kenny's versus Michaelele, then Kenny's versus Pasha, then Neo's versus Pasha.
Oh my god, I'm so jealous.
As a long-term VP supporter from back in the day, I might shed a tear when I introduce those two.
Oh,
and
mate, I'm so jealous,
and
actually.
Michaelele to end it off.
Yeah.
So that's one day before they go on to the BO3s and the grand final and the semi-finals and grand final. But still, one day I'm very much looking forward to.
I got to ask you both. So Trav, you can, since this is of course you're working on it. This is the thing you're looking forward to. Who do you think's winning it? 'Cause I did a tweet earlier, and there was a lot of debate. To be honest, more than I thought there would be actually. So who do you think's winning it? Don't give me one or two. I want to know. I want you to just double down. Say it now before you start the cast.
There's been one day of play so far. I think Heaton's team is already eliminated. I'm pretty sure.
GG.
Neo's team, as unfortunately, I think when we look, he's won their first game, but they had the worst round of it. I think it was 16-14.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Pasha's team destroyed in their game that they played. They got a 13 round difference, BO1. I think, for me, it's between Edwards' Young Guns, who can just take over a server at any point, or Pasha's like two-man core, like having Mihu and Shane as like hugely talented players against Snacks, who can still be on a tier 1 team in my opinion after what he did in Dallas.
Yeah, I agree.
And Pasha can still play well, and of course you've got Bialy, who's on a Gentium, I think. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're alright. Yeah.
I think it's between those two. I'm gonna pick Pasha because I love Pasha too much.
Nice. Paladin, who you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go the same. I mean, I think Edwards should win, just because the firepower is just too stacked on that team, at least in like current day CS, for it not to happen. But yeah, the team that got me into CS was VP, and I will always love VP. And if I can see the core back together, I will support them to the grave. Yeah. So Pasha's every day of the week.
Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That game is gonna be a banger.
I just don't see Neo's team being on the same level. So I said I think it's between Pasha and Edward. Like obviously I think that's like kind of what most people said. I did say that Kenny S's quad warping is really funny to me.
That'll
like
be fun.
I just think that's hilarious. Like even the thought process of like, you know, let's say Kenny playing whoever, and someone like an AWP gets dropped, you see 4 players just fucking sprinting for it. Like it's just like the thought process is brilliant to me. And like who technically is the main AWPer? Like I mean, I'm assuming probably Kenny since it's his team. Or did
Kenny
they?
and Smoothie were double AWP, I reckon.
Yeah. Or I was gonna say Smoothie as well, because of course if you're talking about current form, I gotta say I don't know too much about Ninnis. I don't know too much about him.
I don't know about him, no.
So I'm not too sure kind of where he's come from. I had a little look around. I couldn't find too much.
The rules for the tournament are you must have an average age over 26, and you can bring in whoever you want. You can even bring in your mother to play if you want.
Yeah.
So that's probably a player sort of from left field that could be a friend. I think Heaton's playing with a player who hasn't even got an HLTV page. So
yes.
Like, listen,
Ali too or something.
I'll give you an HLTV page, mate. Yeah, you're a good friend of mine. You're a good Counter-Strike player. Let you have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm really looking forward to. And I will actually, incidentally, as to things I'm looking forward to, I'll let you go next, Paladin, as we've sort of cut you off a little bit with our little fanboying.
We could fanboy all day, man.
Yeah.
I'll be doing some of the EU closed qual for Rotterdam as well for ESL, so I'm looking forward to that.
Stuff.
Should be a good fun.
I personally don't know what the future holds. It's a very interesting time because I mean the Americas are more on the horizon. I'd love to be a part of that, and then Rotterdam as well, who I'm pretty sure that one of the 3 of us that are on this call here will inevitably be on that broadcast.
I hope so.
At least I hope so. One or more of the 3 of us. We'll see what happens. It's a very like we'll see type of moment.
Yeah.
But we've got a couple of really good events on the horizon, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most. Just the opportunity to potentially work alongside these players and some really star-studded talent people as well. So I can't even say like if I'm what my next few weeks are looking like. It could look very, very good though, and for that I will leave it at that. You will know soon enough.
Yeah, and I guess for me to sort of finish it off, I'm doing some of the Rotterdam close call, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think kind of as we all know, once you've kind of got a taste of in-person events, that's what you want, right? You want, like they're addictive, like they're so good, they're such good fun. I mean, like, and I feel like even for me, like my second one felt much better than even my first one, and I think my third one will be even better than my second one. It's like I feel like I like personally I keep pushing the boat out more, and I keep like finding what's me on a desk or me on casting. So you've got Rotterdam coming up, you've got the RMRs, and I think to be perfectly honest, the EU RMR I'd assume would be all the tier 1 guys. To be perfectly honest. Bigger names there. You get more days as well, and it's Malta based. I'm not sure if the desk will actually be in Malta. There's obviously they haven't actually announced that fully yet. But either way, I assume a lot of tier 1 guys. Oh yeah, go on.
About that, the desk being in different places. I think that Stockholm studio that we've done our gigs from, the fact that the delay between Stockholm studio and Australia was absolutely minimal.
We had a
conversation,
conversation.
and look at Pro League.
Yeah.
Pro League's product looked worse than Challenger.
Yeah.
Challenger looks superb.
No,
and when it's such a bigger way across the pond as well.
I cannot shout out that studio enough. Like we were having conversations with the casters live in Australia, which with like no delay. It was perfect. I mean, it was like full on conversations. Like it was, which I know it just sounds like you're having a conversation, but it's actually much harder than like people at home would like realize, like to broadcast it and it look like, because to make it look like it has no delay in when you're casting, you have to add delay somewhere else, and you normally add it at the end, but that can be problematic because if you're adding it at the end, it means the casters can delay over over the game, which you saw a bit in Pro League. You'd see kind of like, I think it was like Henry G and Sponge, they were casting and they were like, it was pretty clear they're like 2-3 seconds behind or whatever. So the delay, there has to be delay somewhere, but the guys in Stockholm, they've got that down to a T.
Magic.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
Some little magic bits that they did, little sprinkle.
Yeah, and you got to remember as well, we were doing that at like, it was like from 12 p.m. onwards. So the fact that they're working again on a reverse schedule, like I mean, that shows how talented they are. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like it's the in-person games. You got Rotterdam coming up, you know, you can only hope that one of us three is on it because it just would be awesome. Whether it's casting or on the desk, like, you know, it's not saying no at all. I mean, it's stacked. And then the RMRs. So I think EU. I'd be very surprised if EU's not just predominantly tier 1, to be perfectly honest, because you know, it's the bigger names, the better teams. But there is gaps elsewhere. I mean, let's be realistic. None of us are getting onto the Asia/Oceania one. They're not flying us out to Melbourne.
Fly us out to Melbourne.
They're not doing that. But the NA one has spots. So you look towards kind of the desk, for example. Like, I'd be very surprised if Mike's not hosting it. I mean,
get someone like Sheikh Zilla on to be an analyst.
Potentially as well.
That'd be perfect for him.
But so what I was thinking as well is like, how do ESL go about making a desk? Do they make So for the NA one, did they make them all NA? Which, I mean, I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, potentially, do they bring Maui away from the EU one, put Maui on the NA desk? Potentially, it's going to, you know, have like the big.
I would say it's maybe worth
big tier 1 analyst. Paladin, to be honest, I've said this to your face. I'd be very surprised. I mean, like in terms of analysts, not inside that tier 1 conversation, or like not like an already like pro league or, you know, major NA analyst. There isn't actually that many at the moment, so I feel like yeah. But then there's a gap. So even though I'm not NA, get me on it. Like, it would be great fun. But it's excitement for the possibility more than excitement for confirmation, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time generally. There's a lot going on, a lot of events. The only thing that I'm actually sad to say that, you know, a week ago I would have been saying I'm excited about it was conference, but they've moved conference now to 2023, which is unfortunate, but at the same time good, because it means Pro League follows conference straight after, which is going to be really cool, because it means like we're not going to have situations like FTW where the FTW that qualified for Pro League is a different team that actually plays a Pro League because they've been poached in between. So that, I think, actually in the long term is really good. I think the product will end up being really good. But for me, that's it. I did a bit of Rotterdam close qualifiers. Hopefully we'll get on the desk or casting for Rotterdam or the RMR. And then we get to watch some lovely bit of CS. And after that,
we've got the major.
Yeah,
we've got to watch the major.
The bloody major.
And then I don't know what else is to see out the year. I'm not too sure if there are any others. Like,
it's actually like we've got not like next to no information. I'm assuming it's gonna be very like CCT heavy stuff.
Yeah, and Republic
they'll probably come out of the
Elisa,
woodwork. Yeah,
those sort of tournaments. And do you know, I'd even like to see a little bit more competition in the tier 2 scene. Maybe another TO come out. I know Blast Rising were involved for a while. You know, Blast had like a tier 2 circuit. They only did one tournament though, and it ran super well. Like, I was part of it, and it was like prod wise, it was stunning. And it was run by the Fantasy Expo dudes, and they know what they're doing, right? So, like, you know, maybe a bit of investment comes through. Maybe see Kingman do a tier 2. That'll go good fun. But I think the end of the year, it's up in the air. But, you know, we can be excited about what is potential. But I think that's good for us to call it there. It's been actually
fun.
It's been nearly 3 hours, boys.
Nearly 3 hours.
Yep. That's impressively long. But we'll call it there, ladies and gentlemen. So
if anyone's watched the whole thing, I love you. I'll give you a kiss.
If anyone's watched the whole thing, what can we say for them to type to prove that they watched the whole thing? Because that's a solid effort. Howl for my mouse pad. Howl for the mouse pad. There we go. That's a solid effort if you've done that, boys. Good. 2 hours 45 minutes. You're a better man than me. But we'll bid you all a farewell, fair do, whatever. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We will try and make this like obviously 2 weeks, because, you know, unless we get very busy. But it's a good thing if we get busy when you think about it. So see the positives. Either way, go and check out Paladin. His YouTube is linked below. Travs also, his Twitch is linked below. Twitter's all below. You see them on your screen. Give them all a follow. Thank you for joining, people. We will see you all. It was like 2-ish weeks. We'll try and hold to that. We'll try and stick to that. Who knows? We'll see. But thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And we'll see you all very soon. Bye bye.